recognized attributes of statehood, as was the case when Washington cut off funding to UNESCO after it granted Palestine full membership in 2011. The US has also argued that the Palestinian Authority needed to undergo major reforms before it could be recognized as a state. And while the Security Council might be forced to reconsider its earlier decision, the outcome appears unlikely to change in the short term despite pressure from the GA. Washington believes the matter of a two-state solution is best dealt with in direct negotiations between the parties, talks that have been non-existent for years, and with no current path towards such negotiations. I'm Sherwin Bryce-Pease in New York.
That's where we got to end it for today. Thank you so much for your comments. Can't get to all of them. From the team, Tracy Bunga, Tapelo Zabanyoni, Tizwang Winamanashi, and Murumukakana. Our senior producer, Ronald Piri, technical producer, Kachisu Butlok, and executive producer, Wutsila Kota. Elvis Preston will see you tomorrow morning. Same time, same place. Ciao for now. Arrivederci.
In our top stories, death toll now at 7 from George building collapse and ActionSA leaders found safe after suspected hijacking. Good morning. 7 people have now died after a building collapsed in George in the Western Cape. Authorities retrieved another construction worker from the rubble at the site last night. Rescue efforts are continuing to find the remaining 42 trapped workers. The apartment building was being developed by a private company, the Neo-Trend Group ICE Projects. George Municipality spokesperson Ntobeko Mangwengwe says a multidisciplinary rescue team of more than 200 emergency services personnel are continuing to conduct rescue operations.
33 patients have been removed from the rubble of the collapsed multi-story construction site at Victoria Street, leaving 42 persons unaccounted for. 75 construction workers were present on the site at the time of the collapse, which occurred at approximately 2 on Monday, and the rescue operation is now approaching 30 hours as of 8 o'clock of the evening of Tuesday, the 7th of May.
2 learners have been taken to hospital after a school bus fire incident on the R80 Mabopane freeway in Pretoria North. Over 60 learners managed to jump out of the bus before firefighters and other emergency services personnel arrived at the scene yesterday afternoon. Tshwane Emergency Services spokesperson Charles Mabaso.
62 in number were found outside of the bus already. 2 female learners were transported to a nearby hospital, or rather the first military hospital, by a private ambulance.
ActionSA says its Gauteng Premier candidate Funzi Nkobeni and Youth Forum chairperson Hlupi Gafane have been found unharmed. The party officials were allegedly hijacked in Olivenhout Bosch in Centurion north of Pretoria last night. They were found in Benoni east of Johannesburg. ActionSA's national chairperson Michael Beaumont says Nkobeni and Gafane are traumatized but safe.
ActionSA expresses its profound gratitude to members of SAPS who were incredibly responsive, and we are deeply humbled by the overwhelming outpouring of support and concern from South Africans. It is requested that Nkobeni and Gafane be afforded the space to recover from their ordeal.
In election-related news, DA leader John Steenhuisen has defended the party's controversial election advert of the South African flag going up in flames. Steenhuisen took the party's election campaign to East London under the theme Rescue South Africa. He says the advert is a reminder to voters who will vote for an ANC, EFF and MK party coalition in the national and provincial elections later this month. He describes the coalition of the parties as a doomsday coalition that would lead the country into an economic decline.
He uses the flag as an allegory of the problems that South Africa is facing. Our economy is burning. Our infrastructure is burning. Our unemployment rate is burning. our child malnutrition rate is burning. And all of these things are setting the country back. And the advert says that if we want to accelerate that burn, well, then get the ANC Doomsday Coalition come in with the EFF.
And finally, the governor of the Brazilian state of Rio Grande do Sul has announced the deployment of an extra 1,000 police and security officers to stop looting and crime in areas devastated by floods. At least 95 people have died and dozens are missing. The BBC's Leonardo Rochard reports.
Governor Eduardo Leite has called for help from the central government in Brasilia and has promised to boost security by hiring emergency staff. Criminal gangs have been attacking emergency teams and stealing their boats to loot abandoned buildings. Many teams are refusing to go out after dark. The governor has also warned that more torrential rain and strong winds are expected with the arrival of a cold front later on Wednesday.
Recapping the top stories, 7 people have now died after a building collapsed in George in the Western Cape. Authorities retrieved another construction worker from the rubble at the site last night. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, soccer action. Despite being one man down, Kaizer Chiefs fought valiantly to secure a draw against TS Galaxy in a thrilling PSL encounter, and the junior Springboks faced a tough defeat against the Baby Wallabies in the Under-20 Rugby Championships, struggling under harsh weather conditions. Details just before 6:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Pretty good start on the Gauteng highway networks. Nothing too serious to report in on there, although a little bit of traffic just starting to build up on the Mike 1 from Boysons into Crown. Pietermaritzburg down to Durban. If that's your commute through all the roadworks, that is clear. And Cape Town, busy on the N2. There's a bit of backlogging already from Khayelitsha through to the airport area, and then from Robert Sobukwe through towards the M5. The N2 into Cape Town looks like being busy Wednesday. Also, the Huguenot Tunnel, just able to confirm that the road is open. It was closed last night from about 7:30 until about 4 a.m. this morning due to a major truck crash in the tunnel, but it has been clear. The tunnel's open and traffic is flowing both ways. I'm Rob Byrne. SAFM Sunrise starts now.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
6:07. Good morning. Welcome to SFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Glad you're with us this Wednesday morning. And I wish I could start the morning with better news. I wish I could start the morning with, the building collapse in George didn't happen, or that, dozens and dozens of people have been pulled alive. But I'm afraid that's not the story this morning. And I'm really sorry to have to say this, but we're still looking at over 40 people unaccounted for. And as we go sort of 36 hours into, this rescue operation that sort of started just a few moments after 2 o'clock on Monday afternoon, you just realize how difficult the situation is. I've been thinking about the families sitting on the sidelines, sort of watching the rescue crew. The scenes, I don't know if you've seen some of the pictures as it gets dark. The sun not yet rising, of course, in the Western Cape. There'll probably be a couple of twin tinges of sort of pink sky somewhere, but that's it. And you have these rescue crews working through the night, being, given shifts, people bringing food and stuff for them and for the families. And you have this really difficult situation that's developing there. And you have these sort of lights bearing down on the scene, and people often having to move rubble away by hand, having to be very careful. There's heavy equipment there, but a very difficult situation. Unfortunately, fortunately, 2 people were rescued overnight, as you know, 2 workers pulled from it alive, but still 42 unaccounted for. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is, how did this happen so quickly? Everyone who's spoken to us about it has said this happened sort of so quickly. And how did that happen? And that's one of the questions I think that we need to get to. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the morning. We'll speak to sort of expert in civil engineering. We'll speak to other people about this. We'll get updates for you on the ground. But a very difficult situation that I think really is developing around this. The other story developing overnight is around the ActionSA Gauteng Premier candidate Funzi Ngubeni and their Gauteng Youth Forum chair Hlupi Gafwe, hijacked last night. And when I first saw this sort of statement from ActionSA saying, these 2 officials had been hijacked, I thought, gosh. Overnight, though, they've been found. They seem to be safe and well. They were found in Benoni. So I'm sure more details around that will start to come out as well. And they'll probably probably, I doubt they got any sleep last night. They'll need some, time to recover from that. Many times we've heard of people being hijacked, very prominent people being hijacked as well. So a developing story there. The other story, of course, which is moving so strongly in many different directions, is around the advert published by the Democratic Alliance showing our flag burning. And I think many people talking of how, I think, just hurt. Maybe that's the right word. And maybe that's why I think so many people are so angry. There's a sense of hurt around it. The President, Cyril Ramaphosa, he said yesterday that the flag advert is treasonous. He said that really, national symbols should be above political interests. And I thought that was very interesting. I mean, treasonous is a very strong word. And basically, he says it's disrespectful to do this to national symbols. I don't think you could really disagree with that. The Minister of Sport, Arts and Cultures, Zi Kodwa, he says he wants to take legal action against the DA. He says he can't allow the desecration of national symbols. He's going to look at what can be done against the DA for this. We're due to speak to him a little later in the program, and at this stage I'm sort of hoping in the next half an hour or so we'll speak to him. May only be after 7 o'clock, but we'll try and do it a little bit before then if we can. We thought it was important to get him on the radio as quickly as possible. But basically, and various parts of the ANC issuing statements themselves yesterday, all really condemning this action by the Democratic Alliance. Helen Ziller, the chair of the DA's Federal Council, a very different view, as you can imagine. She says the flag is a symbol of the dreams that people shared, that we all shared, as she puts it, 30 years ago. And then again, as she puts it, the dreams have been ravaged by the ANC, and that the advert shows how they want to save the flag. And she says, and you can see this because of the fact that the flag is restored at the end, is the point. She says the DA is all about, this advert, as she sees it, is all about restoring the flag and therefore restoring the dream. So, I don't know. I mean, I was very interested by the diversity of opinions we had yesterday. And I'm very interested to see if your thoughts maybe have moved or shifted or changed over the last sort of 24 hours, over the last few hours on this, because I think there are strong feelings. I think we're absolutely allowed to have strong feelings about our flag. I think we should have strong feelings about our flag one way or another. Staying with the elections yesterday, we spoke to some Killer Maseko as that news was breaking. The person who founded Umkhonto weSizwe, Jabulani Khumalo, had written a letter to the Electoral Commission asking that former President Jacob Zuma be removed as leader of MK. They say he is basically saying that Zuma is not the rightful leader of MK. As you know, Zuma's, I don't know, do I call it a faction of MK already? Says Khumalo has been removed from MK. The IEC did issue a short statement yesterday, and they say that at the moment, Jacob Zuma is the recognized leader of MK because they were asked to recognize him as leader by Khumalo. As Zuma is now the leader, they can only take instruction from him, not from anyone else. And so what that would mean then is that Zuma, as things stand this morning, is still the leader, the legal leader of Umkhonto weSizwe. I thought it important just to sort of put that there. Julius Malema was in Bushbuck Ridge yesterday talking about the EFF sort of election manifesto. Land and jobs now, of course, is their main slogan. Tokyo Sexwale, the ANC, I think he might be offended if I call him a stalwart or a veteran at this stage. Still a young man, hey, Mdu. I think he was on the campaign trail as well yesterday. It's been interesting watching some of the sort of older leaders of the ANC as they've been campaigning. And then City Power yesterday hitting back at Eskom. Eskom says City Power owes them R1 billion. City Power says, no. You owe us R3 billion because you've been overcharging us since 2021 and our own meters prove it. Some lawyer somewhere is going to do very nicely out of all of this. All right, good to have you along this morning. Strong views being expressed, very, very concerned and worried, and still in some ways hopeful about the situation in George. You know the number 086 000 2032, SMS 41391. You tweet SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes. Send your WhatsApp voice notes to 0614 104 107. Good morning, it's 13 minutes after 6.
Which is the best way to reach success? Is it best to go alone so you can go fast? Or for many to go together so they can go far? What if you need to go fast and far? At RMB, we believe the best way to success doesn't make you choose when both are possible. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB. a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
My name is Njabulo Nzuza, the Deputy Minister of Home Affairs. During the successful voter registration weekend drives, we invited you, our valued clients, to come and collect your IDs. Thank you to the more than 65,000 citizens who came to our offices. We once again invite you to visit us during our extended office hours on Saturdays in May 2024 to come and collect your ID.
Miss South Africa 2024 entries are officially open, and if you are ready to answer the call and become Miss SA 2024, your time is now. Step into your power and embrace your future. Entries close at 6 p.m. on the 8th of May. Go to missa.co.za or download the Miss South Africa app and enter now.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
And Musa, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you, Stephen. Yourself?
Yeah, all right. Just watching the situation in George. We've got a team there, obviously.
Yes, we do. So we're expecting an update just after 6 with regards to the latest. But what we know is that rescue efforts still continuing. 7 people have died so far and about 42 are still unaccounted for.
It's still, very, very difficult situation that's developing
very difficult. And yesterday, the building contractor was identified, and the company as well saying that they are willing to assist with the ongoing rescue efforts in any way possible, and also just committing themselves to cooperate with authorities, and that is to determine the cause of the tragedy. But the structural engineer, they're saying that they cannot say for now how long this investigation will take. So we're still expecting a lot here to develop with regards to this.
There'll be a formal investigation, a formal inquiry, although some details might start to come out pretty quickly.
Very true. So will the Department of Labour institute that Section 32 hearing? Yeah, we'll wait and see.
What else is happening?
The Constitutional Court is expected to hear an application by the 3 political parties who are challenging their exclusion from contesting the elections. It is the African Congress for Transformation, the Labour Party, and the African Alliance of Social Democrats. They excluded from the 2024 ballot after the Electoral Court dismissed their applications, and they allege they could not comply with the March 8 deadline due to alleged faults with the IEC's online portal. And the parties we know had approached the Commission on the matters, and they received no joy. So the parties now approached the Electoral Court, where their matter was dismissed with no order of costs, and now heading to the Constitutional Court. With elections also just a few days away or weeks away, the ANC-NEC members deployed in the province are continuing with their campaign trail. Nomvula Mokonyane will be campaigning around Pietermaritzburg, also expecting the president of the African Congress for Transformation, Ace Magashule, will be campaigning in Kroonstad, and he will be conducting door-to-door campaigns there. In Gqeberha, the good leader Patricia de Lille will be there as part of her election campaign, and she will also be launching a free Wi-Fi internet access drive. And just lastly, the President Cyril Ramaphosa will attend the launch of the 30 Years of Democracy Review report. Now, this report will give a critical view of what has been done since the dawn of democracy. It will reflect on the political, social and economic journey of transformation of our country since 1994, and from this lessons derived, as well as to make recommendations for the country's development agenda.
And Musa, thank you very much indeed. We'll be listening on the radio. Good morning, 18 minutes after 6.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Let's look at your weather around the country this morning. Tshwane fine, a low of 12, a high of 30. Johannesburg fine, 9 and 28. Vereeniging fine, 9 and 29. Bombela fine, 11 and 29. Polokwane fine, 10 and 29. Mahikeng fine, 12 and 29. Vryburg fine, 9 and 30. Mangaung fine, 6 and 28. Kimberley fine, 12 and 29. Uppington partly cloudy, 15 and 30. Cape Town partly cloudy, fine by the late morning, a light to moderate southerly wind, 10 and 19. George, well, look, cloudy for that rescue operation. There is a chance of light rain. That would make everything very difficult. And partly cloudy later, a light southeasterly wind, 13 and 19. Gqeberha, cloudy, a chance of light rain. Partly cloudy from the afternoon, a moderate to fresh southwesterly, 16 and 21. East London, cloudy at times, light rain, a moderate to fresh southwesterly, 19 and 22. eThekwini, fine, partly cloudy from the afternoon, a moderate northeasterly wind, 18 and 27. Richards Bay, fine, becoming partly cloudy from the late afternoon, a moderate to fresh northeasterly wind, 19 and 27, and Pietermaritzburg fine, 12 and 26.
The SABC Fortune Combo radio stations, which includes SAFM, Lotus FM, and Radio 2000, seek the services of a freelance graphic designer who will collaborate with cross-functional teams to create visually compelling assets that align with our receptive brand identities and resonate with our target audiences. The minimum requirements for the position are a bachelor's degree or diploma in graphic design, visual arts, or related field, 2 to 4 years proven experience as a graphic designer with a strong portfolio showcasing a range of design projects. All interested candidates should submit their CVs and portfolio of evidence to vacancy@safm.co.za. Application closed on the 26th of May 2024. For more detailed info, visit www.safm.co.za or follow us on our social media pages at SAFM Radio.
SAFM, leading the conversation.
Come test drive the new Ford Territory, the family SUV with a spacious interior, 5 partial leather seats for your family, and a 12.3-inch touchscreen. Get yours at launch prices from only 590,000 Rand, including an optional service plan for a limited time only. Get to your nearest Ford dealer and test drive the new Ford Territory today. T&Cs apply.
Greenpeace is on a mission for a greener world. We're all about making the switch from fossil fuels to renewable energy because it's just common sense, right? Don't buy into the hype about oil and gas. They'll only make our climate crisis and extreme weather worse. We're pushing for real change, like in Mpumalanga, where we teamed up with MS Environmental Projects, who just won in court against the municipality for pollution. So when it's time to vote, remember to say yes to renewable energy. Swing by greenpeace.org/Africa to join the movement.
City lads, ladies can't wait to get out of the bottom half, and they understand that victory will elevate them from their current positions. However, JVW ladies want a win to secure a better position in the top half. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the queens of the beautiful game, City Lads Ladies FC versus JVW Ladies FC, on Sunday 12 May at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Road Accident Fund will be announcing winners of the Road Safety School Competition and youth projects to be supported by the fund. In August 2023, the RAF launched a comprehensive road safety program for learners and youth. This program involved educating learners in primary schools, special schools and high schools about road safety through talks, industrial theatre performances and road safety simulations, or edutainment. The event will be held in Durban this Friday, 10th of May. For more information, call the RAF on 087 820 1111 www.raf.co.za.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
22 after 6, good morning. In Gaza, thousands of Palestinians are now trying to move from eastern Rafah to an area Israel has claimed will be safe for them as it continues with airstrikes on the city itself. Hamas says it has accepted a ceasefire proposal. Israel says those terms are far from what it calls its necessary requirements, and thus it has to continue to exert military pressure on Hamas or Rafah. The United States has said the United Nations has said any kind of attack on Rafah would be intolerable. As you know, Palestinians have been forced out of almost all of the Gaza area. Rafah is essentially the last place on the border with Egypt. Israel has taken control of the Palestinian side of that border as well. Professor Chris Landsberg is a professor in international relations at the University of Johannesburg and Saatchi chair as well. Professor Landsberg, good morning.
Good to talk to you, SG.
Why is Israel taking control of the Palestinian side of the border with Egypt? What is the point of doing that? There's clearly a plan here.
It's not just the why we should ask. It's also to admit that the manner in which they did it was breathtaking and with a sense of military precision. They're encircling Rafah, which means that they're encircling the entire Gaza Strip and Palestinian area, because remember, apart from the Rafah crossing that was open, controlled by the Egyptians on their side, controlled by the Israelis and aid workers on the other. By taking control, they've cut off aid routes, but I think there's a more strategic purpose, and that's to ensure that they have a hawk's eye view on the movement of Hamas. According to their intelligence and what they have shared with the world, is that they believe there are at least 2 battalions left, at least 2. There could be more according to them. So there is no doubt, Stephen, that this is a prelude for a major attack and assault on Rafah. And I've been struck by how the American students are now changing a tune, not just from calling for a ceasefire and divestment, but also saying hands off Rafah. So as things are developing in Palestine, so they keep abreast.
Hamas said it would accept this peace deal. The proposal came from Qatari and I think Egyptian negotiators. Israel's refused to accept it. Is there any deal that Israel would accept? I mean, it seems they're determined, that the Prime Minister is determined at least to go into Rafah, no matter what.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you say that. The day before yesterday, the Americans and the spokespersons, and I don't say this, to take an unnecessary sort of critical stab at America, but almost with a sense of glee. The spokespersons of the U.S. said the ball is now in Hamas's court. Let's see if they are going to respond now to the ceasefire agreement. And voila, the next thing that happened, Hamas accepts a deal. Now you all of a sudden hear about different iterations of deals doing the rounds. But at the nub of why Israel is not responding it and what's propelling it to do it, at the nub is if they accept a ceasefire right now in the manner in which it is presented, that will lead us to the unthinkable for the Palestinians. You saw some of them started to celebrate when they heard that Hamas accepted it, the Palestinians. It would lead to a permanent ceasefire and the end of war. For Israel, they're not prepared to get to that point until such time that they believe that Hamas is quote-unquote obliterated and totally annihilated. That is the unacceptability for them. For them, we're not at the point yet where we can talk peace. Now Israel is playing an interesting two-speed game here, Stephen, just briefly. On the one hand, it's now sending negotiators back to the negotiating table in Egypt and in Doha. On the other hand, it is moving ahead, not just with the encirclement of Rafah and pushing the population to now move to Mawasa, but they also continuing with the negotiation process to almost prolong it. And I have an idea, in a sense, that the negotiators are going to become frustrated, and an objective might very well be to also break up the negotiation process.
Professor Chris Landsberg, as always, thank you so much. Professor of International Relations at the University of Johannesburg and Saatchi Chair as well. 28 minutes after 6.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning.
Good morning.
So, Chiefs down to 10 men. What happened?
Hey, playing with 10 men and still grabbing a point. Not too shabby, Chiefs. Not too shabby. 2-2 was the final score against TS Galaxy, a DStv Premiership match played at the Peter Mokaba Stadium last night. As a result, Amakhosi remained 8th in the league standings, just 3 points above 12th place AmaZulu. Now, Kevin Johnson's side set to travel to Durban to lock horns with AmaZulu on the 12th of May. Another match saw Cape Town City finally picking up their first win of 2024, beating Morocco Swallows 2-0 at the Athlone Stadium. And relegation threatened Cape Town Spurs secured a critical victory in their battle to stay in the DStv Premiership, defeating Royal AM 1-0 at the Harry Gwala Stadium. With just 3 games remaining, every point is crucial for Cape Town Spurs, who have struggled for consistency throughout the season. Let's hear from their coach Ernst Middendorp on this vital win.
I think in particular in the first half, how we started the game, we gave them one opportunity in the first half, of course with an individual error. That's always a little bit of an issue on our side, but thanks God George didn't use this chance, he missed it. Otherwise dominant, very energetic, absolutely good football even.
Meanwhile, SuperSport United were denied back-to-back wins following a 1-1 draw with Sekhukhune United. Now, elsewhere, Borussia Dortmund became the first team to reach the Champions League final at Wembley as Matt Hummel's second-half header earned them a 1-0 win at Paris Saint-Germain to complete a 2-0 victory on aggregate. Rugby now, the junior Springboks faced a tough defeat, losing 24-19 to the Baby Wallabies in challenging rainy conditions at the Sunshine Coast Stadium. As the tournament progresses, the Junior Boks now have everything to play for in their upcoming match against Argentina's juniors, and that's this Sunday. And finally, the Bulls hooker Johan Grobelaar says the drive to win a few major trophies is one of the reasons for his deciding to extend his stay at Loftus Versfeld for another 3 years. The 26-year-old former junior Springbok will remain a Bull until at least 2027.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to get a contract extension with the Vodacom Bulls, signed for another 3 years up until June 2027. So looking forward for the next 3 years lying ahead. It was really an easy decision. If you take all the talent between the players in the squad, the exceptional coaches, management, great sponsors, it really is a great club to be able to play rugby at. And I'm very glad that I have the opportunity to stay a bit longer.
More sport, top of the hour on Sunrise. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Well, more on the flag, the big argument around the DA's flag burning, or burning flag advert, I should say. That to come with SFM leading the conversation. Good morning at 6:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, another person has been declared dead in the George building collapse in the Western Cape, bringing the death toll to 8 from the rescued 36 people thus far. Rescue workers are still trying to get to the 39 others trapped in the debris. President Cyril Ramaphosa has condemned the DA's controversial elections campaign advert showing the burning of the South African flag, and ActionSA says its Gauteng Premier candidate Funzi Ngobeni and Youth Forum chairperson Hlupi Gafane have been found unharmed. The party officials were allegedly hijacked in Olivenhout Bosch in Centurion north of Pretoria last night. They were found in Benoni east of Johannesburg. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
As you get on Pretoria's Paul Kruger, it's a route over the last couple of weeks. It's just got slowly busier as you come into the Capital Park area. You used to, not so long ago, just be able to whiz straight through there, but just coming down from Mayville, it all gets a bit congested, and it gets a bit congested early in the mornings as well. Joburg side looking okay. If you're out of Pietermaritzburg to Durban, on that commute along the N3, clear. No major breakdowns or crashes in the roadworks. Higginson Highway to Chatsworth looking quite slow again this morning. Bayview side down towards the N2 highway. And Cape Town, a couple of problems on the N2 going inbound. One is quite a nasty crash at Somerset West. It's a pedestrian involved. N2 inbound before Broadway Boulevard. So coming through from Gans Park, there's a backlog, and another crash on the N2 inbound just before Meway at Khayelitsha, causing some delays. Very heavy traffic backlogs around the Delft and Belhar area. Symphony Way northbound, Stellenbosch Arterial westbound into Symphony Way. That's all backed up, and it's a misty start, quite heavy in places as well. Motorists describing some of the mist as fog, which gives you an idea of how heavy it is. So just to take it easy if it's misty, foggy where you are. Might be a good idea around the Greater Cape Town region to get going a little bit earlier and anticipate some delays. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Intaling Lachela, good morning. How are you doing?
Morning, Stephen. I'm good. I hope you're well.
All good, thanks. How are the markets this morning?
Well, it's been another day of gains for markets. In Wall Street, all indexes closed higher, but at a slower pace. That's as traders exercised caution following comments from Fed officials. Now, that rate cut euphoria is starting to disappear as traders ask themselves when and by how much will the Fed cut interest rates this year. Markets in Asia, however, are mostly in the red as the same kind of nervousness hits the positive sentiment. Investors on that end also weighing up the rates rate cut outlook and sifting through earnings reports. Back at home, that rally is starting to run out of steam. The JSE is still in the green, but we are starting to see some pullback, with the all share ending the day up 0.2%. In your currency markets, we are seeing the dollar making a comeback, trading stronger, and with that, the local unit took a dip, trading at 1854 from about 1850 yesterday.
And UBS posting its first profit since that takeover with Credit Suisse.
So UBS is back in the black, Stephen, and as you mentioned, this is the first time it's delivered profits since the Credit Suisse takeover. Now, just a quick reminder, there was a fallout in the European banking industry last year that saw Credit Suisse collapse. The group had been hit by many scandals and failed to restructure its units. So in a move to save its assets, the Swiss government called for a merger between UBS and Credit Suisse. When the deal was finalized, UBS struggled to turn profit, being battered by costs related to Credit Suisse's losses. But now it seems like UBS has things under control as it returned to profitability. This was mainly boosted by its wealth management unit, that division delivering strong revenues up 28%.
And Disney's streaming unit, I mean, they put everything on there a while ago during the pandemic. It's only now looking at turning a profit.
So, Stephen, right, they released their earnings, and on the surface, these numbers look good as Disney topped Wall Street forecasts with revenue rising 1.3% and earnings per share jumping 30%. Now, the group's experience division, which includes theme parks, did quite well with both revenue and profit growing by double digits. But its entertainment unit that now houses those streaming apps, including Disney Plus, Hulu, as well as its sports unit, ESPN, reported an $18 million loss for the fiscal second quarter. Now, this is lower than the loss recorded at the same time last year. And so the company is positive about the division's growth prospects. As you said, it is expecting that unit to break even by the fourth quarter of 2024. Now, you expect markets to welcome this move, but a softer outlook from Disney pushed that share price lower, and it's lost about 11% by yesterday's close.
Intel Lengler-Chellup, thank you very much indeed. She's back in an hour. More business news through the day here on SFM.
Africa Update on SAFM Sunrise, a continental overview of current African affairs.
Ross Advocate Sipho Mantula, good morning.
And Jumbo Africa to the listeners.
The Prime Minister of the UN-backed government in Libya, the Italian president, is there as well. There's a plan.
And remember, we once spoke about this mid-year plan between Libya and Italy. If you look at this plan, both Dibiba and Giorgia Meloni met yesterday to have what we call bilateral talks. But this meeting is not only with the UN-backed Prime Minister, with also the current controversial leader, also Khalif Haftar. He will be meeting with him. But what is in this plan, Stephen, is to reduce what they call illegal movement of people from Libya to Italy. Now they are planning to also look at the issues of energy supply hub between Italy and Libya. We know the challenges even of this crossing of the Mediterranean Sea by Africans from Libya to Italy. So this meeting of minds has been forthcoming since 2023, the Matia Plan for Africa.
And then in Togo, the president there is signing this new constitution. They don't have presidential elections. He can then stay in power.
Stephen, you do remember they have just recently had the legislative elections, but signing this controversial law is to eliminate presidential elections, and at the same time it will be the parliament that will now have to choose the president. Now the opposition has been concerned, and they've been protesting around this, Stephen, saying that they've been cracked on civic freedoms also since this constitutional amendment. So yesterday, for the president of Togo, Kansibe, to sign off this, it might cause tension, Stephen, because there have been concerns around this constitutional amendments. Like I said, there have been protests. So with signing of this, maybe we might be having other protests in Lome soon, with the opposition lamenting with the move by the president of Togo.
And then in Liberia, Professor Patrick Lumumba, a fiery speech yesterday.
Stephen, that speech was under the theme, The Judiciary in Contemporary Times, Dispensing Justice in the New Information Age. One will never know, Stephen, because that conference will end only tomorrow, where you have several vice president of judges coming from Ghana, coming from West Africa. But Lumumba also, Stephen, raising many issues about these African problems and African solutions, and at the same time dealing with the issues of corruption, knowingly that Liberia has a new president now, Joseph Boakai, but also looking at the role of judges in the African continent and globally. So this is an important meeting where you have regional group conference of judges who are coming from different parts of the world.
And then we've been looking at maize prices. What's happening in Namibia?
Stephen, obvious when you talk of Namibia and us, we are neighbors. Now, there have been prices that are likely to shoot up that comes from the port in Namibia, raising the issue that is a high demand for white maize in South Africa that have made Namibia to raise their prices up, Stephen, because even if we know that there are challenges of food security in the African continent, but the issue of Namibia taking their maize prices up, Stephen, it is basically with their neighbors or within the SADC region in terms of prices going up, and the issues of weather also, Stephen, being one of the factors. But Namibia is facing those high prices. We hope they'll manage to deal with the poor people in that country who must afford this maize grade one that they are talking about, that is being delivered between this week on the 14th of May.
And Sipho, I loved your archive choice. I owe my being to the hills and the valleys, the mountains and the glades, the rivers, the deserts, the trees, the flowers, the seas, and the ever-changing seasons that define the face of our native land.
Stephen, that was on this day in 1996. Former President Thabo Mbeki was still a deputy president. It was also on the occasion of the passing of the new constitution. Concluding what you have said, Stephen, he said, my body has frozen in our frost and in our latter day snows. It has stored in the warmth of the sunshine and melted in the heat of midday sun. The crack and the rumble of the summer thunders, lashed by staggering lightning, has been a cause both of trembling and hope. Asante sana SG, as was still leading the conversation, SAFM, celebrating 30 years of freedom, building a better South Africa, a better Africa, and a better world.
Rust Advocate Sipho Mantulap, thank you very much indeed. 19 minutes to 7.
Mama Kiti, I heard Rand Water talking on the radio about how dangerous it is for people to encroach on their pipeline servitude.
Yes, those high-pressure Rand Water pipelines are under the ground distributing megalitres of water. When people build on top of the pipeline, Rand Water is unable to conduct maintenance on the pipeline, which has a negative impact on water provision. Pipelines can burst without warning. People could get seriously injured or worse.
Yes, people can die from a bursting pipe. That is why people need to understand that Rand Water servitude is where a Rand Water pipeline is located. If we build our houses or businesses on a Rand Water servitude, then we are encroaching on that servitude. They say if communities want to know whether they've encroached over servitudes, they should look for the Rand Water beacons.
The beacons indicate the presence of Rand Water pipelines under the ground. They're rectangular, made of concrete, are painted either white or blue, and have the Rand Water logo on them.
Let's take a walk around our area to see if there are any Rand Water beacons so that we can also tell the neighbors.
Rand Water, celebrating 120 years of existence and still finding new ways to provide clean, portable bulk water.
And we would buy 500 cars and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
17 minutes to 7, good morning. President Cyril Ramaphosa has condemned the DA's election advert showing the national flag burning as treasonous. He says using national symbols for political gain is disrespectful. Meanwhile, the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, Kodwa, says he has a duty to protect national symbols. He's looking at what action he can take against the DA for publishing this advert. The chair of the DA's Federal Council, Helen Ziller, says the flag is a symbol of a dream from 30 years ago that, as she puts it, has been ravaged by the ANC, and that the advert shows how the DA wants to save the flag. She's also said that controversy helps to get the DA's message across. Well, the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, Kodwa, is on the line for you now. Minister, good morning.
Morning, SC, and good morning to your listeners.
The President says this advert is treasonous. Why do you believe it's wrong to show an image of our flag burning?
Well, if you know the history of this country, you know that there are two things that unite us in 2024. Firstly, in the past, we never had something called a nation, and that nation today is united in diversity through a flag. Struggles were waged, people were killed, people were jailed, just for us to have a flag that unites us in diversity through its colors. But we also have a national anthem, and these are the things we think in the view of the president, certainly in the view of government. But elections must be about contestation of ideas and policies, not a desecration or to destroy national symbols, things that unite us as a people even beyond the 29th of May, because the 29th of May will come and go, but we must remain united as a people. And part of what parties must do as they campaign is that they must not divide us. Nothing must divide us on the basis of the contestation of ideas. We must still be united because we come from a very divided past. At least that flag is something that unites us from a point of view of our liberation heritage.
At the end of the advert, the flag is restored. It doesn't end with ashes or nothing. It ends with the flag being restored. Does that matter?
Well, the narrative about what happened, but the idea of burning the flag is a bad idea. And I think should be treasonous, which is why we think, among others, one of in the code of conduct of the IEC, it must consider to include a prohibition of such act by political parties. At the moment, political parties sign a code of conduct just in terms of their conduct, but it excludes this important element that parties mustn't be allowed to undermine national symbols, coat of arms, and I think these are some of the lessons, including when the bill which is out now for consultation is called the Heraldry Act. These are the things we must consider. There are certain things, Steve, we can disagree ideologically, politically, and so on. But there are certain things that must unite us as a people, regardless of our political affiliation. And one of which is the flag, is the protection of our flag as the people of South Africa.
Under our law and under our constitution at this moment, I can't really see any way that you could say burning the flag or the image of burning the flag would be illegal. I think the only argument you could make would be that it is somehow hate speech, which you would have to show probably that it's inciting violence. Do you think you can really make that case?
Unless we get to a stage where we regulate in law everything, which was the situation in the past, in terms of racial divide. Some of the assumptions based in the Constitution and also in law is that there are certain things that the maturation of our democrats and political parties, there are things that we will take for granted that they will not do. But clearly, I think there are certain amendments that we need to make, one of which is that I just made an example, that we've got to include, for the purposes of election, that there must be a prohibition of such acts. But we have to visit, like I say, for example, the Heraldry Act, which is now, we are submitting comment to the Office of the State Law Advisor, that there must be serious penalties, including imprisonment, of anybody who is found guilty of desecration or a person who is destroying a national flag or a national heritage or a coat of arms. But you may not find that in any law at the moment. But I think the point that we make is that that shouldn't allow anybody to undermine what unites us as a people, given the history where we come from. I wouldn't mind, interestingly, that politically, we would have engaged differently, not just our mind. We would have engaged differently if the DA would have banned the old flag in South Africa. Maybe the discussion would be different than to ban a flag that seeks to build and unite a country that never existed before.
Okay, so I mean, obviously, to burn a flag is an offensive act, right? I think we can agree on that. The fact is, though, that you can't say one symbol has more value than others, and therefore, this is in law now, and therefore needs to be protected. I mean, there's a space, unfortunately, for this to end in absurd ways. In Zimbabwe, at one point, it was made illegal to carry the Zimbabwean flag because people used it as a sign of protests. And this is the risk, isn't it? Don't you actually need to be quite careful about what law you may want to bring in, even to the IC? It may be a more appropriate route. But as soon as you say you can't do this to this particular symbol, it can take you down a complicated road.
Steve, to ban a flag, a national flag, it's only the enemy of the state that must ban a national flag. And I think that must be there must be consequences for that. Or in a situation where there is political discontent in a society, only the separatists can ban a national flag. And we must separate those issues. And I don't think we must postulate a situation where people disagree and therefore, but what we must at the moment, we must protect our heritage. The only heritage we have, and given our history where we come from as a people of South Africa, coming from a very repressive past, where majority of us will not recognize as citizens. We see ourselves as citizens through that flag. So when you ban that flag, then you are telling us another story about the country and the nation you seek to build. Because for us, that nation represents where we come from and where we're going.
Minister, are you, as the ANC, maybe not falling into a trap set by the Democratic Alliance? I make no comment about the morality of what they're doing. But it may be that an election strategy, and you fought many elections yourself, that they want to determine what the election issue is. They want to force people to discuss a certain issue. They've actually succeeded in doing that. So everything you say about the burning of the flag may be morally correct. But politically, hasn't the DA done what it wanted to do? This is what everyone's talking about.
It's not about noise. It's not about how much noise people make. It's about what is correct and principle. There could be 1,000 people. They could have gained 1 or 2 votes about it, but we must continue to condemn it because what is wrong is wrong. It cannot be on the basis that we wanted to gain and for a political mileage. Maybe that was the intention. But that too, it must be condemned because it's wrong to ban flag. The enemy of the state that bans the flag, and only a separatist that undermines the progress and the democracy that we have made over the 30 years.
Zizi Kodwa, thank you very much indeed, sir, the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture. Your view on that, 086 000 2032, it's 9 minutes to 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Definitely busier now than when we last touched base. The Mike 1 North in Joburg stays, just a problem as motorists continue to familiarise themselves with the closures around the Smith Street off-ramp and Smith Street itself at the Mike 1 highway. It follows last week's fire event that happened there. So the Mike 1 just under pressure coming up from Gold Reef City through to Smith Street. Motorists realise they can't get off and then have to sort of speed up again and push up towards Empire Road or other alternative ramps. Behind that congestion, the M2 is quite heavy coming through from Joe Slovo Drive. A breakdown at Heldenace on the N3, so delays out of Germiston and Alberton, and a crash between Malabongwe and Winnie Mandela. The M1 North starting to push back to towards Bayers Nordia Drive. R21, no change in the roadwork, still there at Clayville, and still an early morning queue if you're airport bound. Make sure you are considering that. Durban's N2, an early big backlog this morning, queuing from the M7, Bluff exit up through Spaghetti Junction into the roadwork zone. That heaviness has arrived a little bit earlier than it normally does. Don't forget roadworks between East London and Butterworth. If you do that trip, there's some stop-go controls just after the Comca exit, and it can cause delays and extended waits through there. Cape Town, very misty this morning. Make sure you've got a little bit of extra time to get through. Just anticipate some delays. Anticipate a general slow go of traffic because of the very poor visibility. 2 crash scenes on the N2, one inbound at Somerset West approaching the Broadway Boulevard exit, another in front of Khayelitsha around Meway, causing a backlog to Spine Road. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Any person aggrieved by any political advertisement or political election broadcast that is broadcast by SAFM may lodge a complaint within 5 days from broadcast with the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA. To lodge your complaint, please contact ICASA's Compliance Department via telephone number on 012 568 3233. That's 012-568-3233. Or email broadcastingcompliance@icasa.org.za. That's broadcastingcompliance@icasa.org.za. Alternatively, complaintsccc@icasa.org.za. That's complaintsccc@icasa.org.za.
Hello, your choice hotline.
Hi, I need you to help me make a choice.
Well, with Ford, you get to make your own choices. Like on a new Ford Ranger, Ford Puma, Ford Everest, and the Ford Tornado bus. There's a flexible deal for every budget at your nearest Ford dealership today. Limited time offer. Your Ford, your choice. T&Cs apply.
The final stretch comes with high emotions and pressure keeps mounting. RB Leipzig are gunning for maximum points on home soil, but their visitors from Bremen believe in the power of 3 points. They want victory for themselves. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch RB Leipzig versus Werder Bremen on Saturday 11 May at 3 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM 104 to 107. Nationwide.
5 minutes to 7. Good morning. Yesterday you heard Eskom explaining why it believes Joburg City Power owes it over 1 billion rand after Eskom confirmed it was going to court to force Joburg to pay over the money. Now the city of Joburg says Eskom's actually overcharged City Power since 2021 and that Eskom owes the city over 3 billion rand. Ntatisi Morangwane is the Deputy Director for Communications for the city of Joburg. Ntatisi, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to the listeners.
Eskom says you owe them 1 billion rand. You say Eskom owes you 3 billion rand. Can you prove it?
Yes, we can. City Power has a first-class technology to validate bulk purchases for completeness and accuracy. That really makes us sure that there has been overcharging over time, and which has been flagged by the city to Eskom. And there has been the discussion to try and find one another. In some instances, Eskom even admitted and paid back to the city an amount of 483 million. But when you look at the numbers, the 483 million is just a drop in an ocean.
Eskom told us yesterday that you'd been in discussions about this debt for some time. So I presume you would have had a room or a virtual meeting or something with City Power and Eskom.
Yes.
I presume in those discussions, have you said to Eskom that Eskom owes you money rather than what Eskom's demanding? I mean, you would have brought up this dispute as part of those discussions?
Yes, we have, and we've been in discussions. The court bid came as a shock to us. The discussions have not been even concluded. We've even offered to say let's have energy experts to validate our readings vis-a-vis the Eskom's readings, and Eskom rejected the 3 experts that we proposed, and we saying okay, if this is the route that Eskom wants to take in terms of taking us to court, let's meet in court, and so that the court is a better platform for us to find one another.
From what I understand, Eskom has said in its court application that you charge a markup of 60%. Is that right?
I don't know where they take those figures from, but I don't have the exact figure. But it can't be true.
It can't be true. So it can't be 60%.
It can't be.
You're absolutely certain.
I'm certain.
All right. Ntatisi Morangwane, thank you very much indeed, Deputy Director for Communications for the City of Johannesburg. Well, you've heard both sides of that. Let's see how that little dispute plays out. And we've seen this, of course, involving other cities as well, including Tshwane. All right. Good moment to hear from you on 086 000 2032. 2 minutes now to 7 o'clock.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Lots of issues, of course, this morning. We've got the situation around the flag. We've got the situation also around what's playing out in George at the moment as well. And that, of course, an incredibly important conversation. Wells in Mpumalanga. Wells, hi, good morning. The flag, go for it.
Good morning, Steve. Mine is too short. Steve, if you travel from here, from South Africa, you are going to Mozambique. At the border, for example, the border between Zimbabwe and Mozambique, they will warn you in advance that, guys, be careful, don't go near the flag. Be away 2 meters, you must be 2 meters away from the flag or 3 meters away from the flag. You can't even touch the flagpole itself. The moment you go there and touch the flagpole, you are in. They will lock you straight right away and no negotiations. Thank you. That's what I wanted to say.
All right, so it's about respect.
Yeah.
All right, Wells, thank you. And in Mpumalanga, I mean, I don't know where that leaves, people who wear the flag. And I think we all kind of wear the flag at times, during a football match or rugby match or cricket match or whatever. You see people wearing the flag all the time. And that's kind of become, I think, part of our culture, I think that's an important part of our culture in some ways. All right, we're going to have updates for you on the situation on the ground in George. That'll be the big focus for the next half an hour. We'll speak to the disaster management there. We'll speak to other people there. We'll actually also speak to a civil engineer about the situation on the ground in George and what may have led to this building collapse. You with SAFM leading the conversation. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
In our top stories, rescue efforts to find trapped workers in George building collapse continues, and ActionSA leaders found safe after suspected hijacking. Good morning. 7 people have died after a building collapsed in George in the Western Cape and not 8 as previously reported. Rescue efforts are continuing to find the remaining 39 trapped workers. 36 workers have been retrieved. 75 construction workers were present at the site at the time of the collapse, which happened on Monday afternoon. The apartment building was being developed by a private company, the Neo Trend Group ICE Projects. In election-related news, President Cyril Ramaphosa has condemned the DA's controversial elections campaign advert showcasing the burning of the South African flag. He was speaking during the official launch of the newly built Home Affairs offices and unveiling of 100 Home Affairs mobile truck offices in Mukupane in Limpopo.
With regard to the burning of the flag, even in a political advert, that is treasonous. The flag of our country is a sacred article in the life of our country. It is that flag that unites all of us. It is despicable that a political party can, as it seeks to express itself, go and burn the symbol of our unity, the symbol of our existence as a nation.
Meanwhile, DA leader John Steenhuisen has defended the party's controversial election advert. Steenhuisen took the party's election campaign to East London under the theme Rescue South Africa. He says the advert is a reminder to voters who will vote for an ANC, EFF and MK party coalition in the national and provincial elections later this month. He describes the coalition of the parties as a doomsday coalition that would lead the country into an economic decline.
He uses the flag as an allegory of the problems that South Africa is facing. Our economy is burning. Our infrastructure is burning. Our unemployment rate is burning. Our child malnutrition rate is burning. And all of these things are setting the country back. And the advert says that if we want to accelerate that burn, well, then get the ANC Doomsday Coalition come in with the EFF.
ActionSA says its Gauteng Premier candidate Funzi Ngobeni and Youth Forum chairperson Hlupi Gafane have been found unharmed. The party officials were allegedly hijacked in Olivenhout Bosch in Centurion, north of Pretoria last night. They were found in Benoni, east of Johannesburg. ActionSA national chairperson Michael Beaumont says Ngobeni and Gafane are traumatized but safe.
ActionSA expresses its profound gratitude to members of SAPS who were incredibly responsive, and we are deeply humbled by the overwhelming outpouring of support and concern from South Africans. It is requested that Ngobeni and Gafane be afforded the space to recover from their ordeal.
Firefighters have managed to put out a fire at a residential building in Joubert Park in the city centre in Johannesburg. The cause of the fire is yet to be determined. The blaze comes in the wake of the release of a report into the Usindisu building fire, which claimed the lives of 77 people last year. Johannesburg Emergency Services spokesperson Robert Mulahodzi.
The fire has been completely extinguished with no injuries reported. Residents are urged to continue to exercise caution while using any heating devices and not to leave them unattended so that we can prevent fire incidents at home.
And finally, BBC analysis suggests that the world's oceans have broken temperature records every single day over the past year because of climate change. The BBC's Justin Rowland reports.
The analysis shows that temperatures in the world's oceans haven't just been edging past previous records over the last year, they have been smashing them. On around 47 days, the existing high was exceeded by at least a third of a degree Celsius, and our superheated oceans have hit marine life hard. Climate scientists say the main cause of this record warmth in the world's air and seas is the extra energy trapped in the atmosphere by greenhouse gases, though they say the recurring weather event El Nino also helped dial global temperatures up a notch or two.
Recapping the top stories, 7 people have died after building collapsed in George in the Western Cape and not 8 as previously reported. Rescue efforts are continuing to find the remaining 39 trapped workers. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports Headlines, rugby. The Springbok women are set for a tough clash against Kenya today in the Rugby Africa Women's Cup. And 10-man Kaizer Chiefs, they held on for a draw with TS Galaxies, showing the points in a thrilling PSL match. We'll bring you the details and more just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy traffic through the Crown. Mike 1 from Goldridge City all the way through to Empire Road now, partially due to volume. The other part of that equation is the closure of the Smith Street ramp and the closure of Smith Street itself. Motorists still busy familiarising themselves with that. The N3, a breakdown before Heldnesa coming out of Germiston and Alberton is quite busy. And we've got some heavy traffic. This is unusual. N1 North driving up to Pretoria. We're told it's a breakdown on the N1 North before the R21, but it looks a little bit heavier than a breakdown queue. But it's a big backlog back beyond Buerta Avenue at this stage, so that's heavy. Durban's M4 inbound, all of a sudden around the Clarewood area on your way to Umbilo, starting to slow up. And Cape Town, the Stellenbosch Arterial Road, big queues there this morning from Kales River through Delft on your way to Belhar, and a crash on the N2 inbound at Somerset West causing delays. Another crash inbound further in at Khayelitsha before Mew Way. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise, a vivid start to your day.
6 minutes after 7, good morning. You are with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Glad you're with us this Wednesday morning. More to come on the situation in George. We'll speak to Sakri Chetty, our reporter on the ground. We'll speak as well to disaster management there. And then, of course, to a civil engineer about what could have led a building like this to collapse and what measures are taken to ensure that doesn't happen. Calls still coming through. I think many of them, of course, around the flag burning issue. Very keen to hear from you on that. You've heard the Minister of Sports, Zikoro. You heard the leader of the DA in the news bulletin, John Steenhuisen, just a moment ago as well, defending the decision to show this advert. I don't know how you feel about it this morning. I was intrigued by how you felt about it yesterday. You're allowed to change your mind on this, by the way. You are allowed to change your mind. It's often the sort of adult, mature thing to do. I don't think we sort of look at that enough in South Africa. Yesterday, Mdu, being, having better vision than Stanza and I, yesterday told us something I didn't know, which is that Amazon has gone live in South Africa, set to change the world of online retailing, I think. Well, that's your mediated conversation. What's happening in the online space? We'll talk about that from 8:30. Good morning.
I want to talk to this girl, but I'm shy, bro. Come on, go talk to her, bro. It's a masquerade party. Plus, the ladies love a man with a bit of mystery. Don't worry, we got you. Hey, girl.
I just want to know who's behind that mess. From the moment I saw you, you stole my heart. Can I please get your number, babe? And I'll take your word. I promise to love you forever, and this I vow. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
I'll show you my face if you show me yours.
Let's face it, when you channel your inner superstar, every moment turns into a musical. Catch The Masked Singer SA, Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and see who's hiding behind the mask. Channel A Better You with S3. S3, open up.
Real savings, real benefits. Here's what real clients say about OUTsurance.
My name is Alan. I'm 71 years of age and I live in Douglasdale. I'm paying 554 Rand a month for my 2022 Nissan Magnite.
Want a car insurance premium that'll blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote. It's quick, it's easy, and it could save you hundreds of rands every month. Here's Amy.
To anyone who has not reached out to OUTsurance, what are you doing? Reach out today.
Blow your mind, not your paycheck. SMS out to 30754 and see for yourself why OUTsurance was voted Best Car Insurer 2023 by the Star and Pretoria newsreaders. Here's Yusuf.
It just shows that OUTsurance is top of the tops when it comes to insurers.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. OUTsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
Rise to the occasion with Season 5 of The Taste Master SA, Tuesday evenings at 7 on SABC2. Follow the delicious journey as 14 of the country's best baking talents compete to impress the judges and claim the title. Only one will be crowned the Taste Master and win the grand prize valued at more than 400,000 Rand. That's Tuesdays at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. on SABC2.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag SAFM Sunrise.
10 after 7, good morning. Well, it's been another incredibly long night for families and rescuers on the site of the collapsed building in George in the Western Cape. People again working through the night to try and find workers trapped in the rubble. So far, the numbers seem to be around just under 40 people are still unaccounted for. At least 7 people have now died. Several people rescued through the night. Sagri Chetty is the SABC News reporter in the Western Cape, been on the site of the collapse in George now for over 24 hours. Sagri, good morning.
Good morning to you, Stephen, and to the listeners.
What's been happening there through the night?
Well, the update that we received this morning, and as you've heard, is that there's 7 fatalities, a total of 36 people who were rescued, and 7 of those unfortunately deceased. So that means there's 39 people that still need to be rescued. The rescue workers, obviously, they worked throughout the night. There's about 200 of them on the site right now. So while there's been some very, very sad moments, when we get updates of the deaths that have occurred, and of course the death toll rising, there's also been these joyous moments, I think if you can call it that. For example, when another survivor is pulled out of the rubble like last night, and there was clapping and tears. So it was such an emotional scene, and this is basically what has been happening for the last 40 hours, since the incident occurred.
And the families, what are they telling you? I mean, I can't imagine watching this happen, hoping that your relative is the next to come out.
Well, Stephen, there have been over 100 family members, that have come to the site. And they've been coming to the scene. It's just across the road from the George Municipality. So the municipality actually did open up its doors to these family members. So they've been sitting there and waiting for any news, I'm sure it's been very hard for them. We've seen some of them in tears, breaking down, devastated. But residents in George have been supporting them. Faith-based organizations, they're bringing them food, drinks, and just comforting them. There's also counselors there for them. And yes, as you can imagine, it is difficult for them. Some of them, they just say they just want answers about their loved ones. They just want to know that they're okay. Officials have been updating them. Others are a bit angry, asking why did this happen? what caused this, who is to blame, and then you just get those that just sit and wait at the site just to hear, any information.
And Sagri, any idea at this stage as to what caused the building to collapse? Obviously, there'll need to be a formal investigation.
Yes, there will be a formal investigation. So the Premier of the Western Cape, Alan Winde, he did hold a press conference yesterday where he addressed this. And Winde said that an investigation has started. But obviously, he says priority is for getting out those people that are still trapped. And the rescue workers, they have access to the site right now. So it's very busy, but they're working hand in hand. Mr. Winde said that they've brought on board an independent structural engineer who has been on site. We've also seen the Department of Labour officials there. So those details about the cause of this tragedy will emerge soon, I'm sure. The developer has also been identified, Neo Trend Group, ICE Projects, and no doubt there'll be questions for them to answer as well.
Sagri Chetty, thank you. The reporter for SABC News in the Western Cape on the site there. You were with SFM, just gone 7:15. Colin Denyer is the Chief Director for Disaster Management in the Western Cape. Colin, good morning, and I really appreciate you taking the time again. What kind of efforts have you been running through the night? What have you been able to do through the last sort of 24 hours?
Good morning, Stephen. Yeah, so we had two, we call them work sessions from 6 to 12 last night, and then from 12 to 6. The 6 to 12 we felt quite successful. So we've had people trapped in a basement, 4 people since the collapse. We were able to get them all out last night alive. Then our last live rescue was at 1 o'clock this morning. It was a young lady who we were able to get out. So she's gone to hospital. I'm not totally sure of all the injuries, but we've always been very aware of crush syndrome and that kind of thing. So then we put the dogs over because we don't have contact anymore with anybody. Doesn't mean that there isn't anybody trapped. So that's really the objective today, overnight, is there's a parking, like a carport on the backside of the building. And we haven't been able to access because all our focus has been on getting the people that we knew about. So now we're going to take the carport out and then we'll tunnel in from the back. There's quite a couple of collapse voids there, so we're going to try and work through them and see if we can find any live victims there.
It must be incredibly slow work. You have to be so careful, and it must be very difficult to do when it's dark.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got good lighting, so the lighting systems are very good. But what happens is it doesn't matter how good the lighting is. The moment you get low down into something, you start seeing a lot of shadows. So, the guys have to have headlights. We have to bring in localized lighting. And it is very slow because it's heavy concrete and, there's a lot of cutting and careful. We had a bit of a shift of one of the floors yesterday. Nothing dangerous. I mean, we are monitoring all the time, but we had to make sure that we stabilized that floor before we were able to send people in. So the whole time you have to just keep an eye on these things.
There's a weather forecast for what the Weather Service describes as light rain later, or the possibility of light rain. A rain now would be the worst thing, right?
Yeah, it would, because it makes it slippery, it makes it dangerous. If it's light rain, it's, we can manage that. Rescues happen in all sorts of weather. Because it's like it's collapsed into a basement, we're going to have to look in heavy rain, a big shower, we could end up with water in the basement. But we've got pumps here, we've planned for that. So if it does happen, we'll just have to bring that in.
The focus is on rescue work at the moment, and I completely understand that. You're able to communicate with the families and update them. We just heard from our reporter, Sagri Chetty, around. I can't imagine, sitting there waiting to see if your relative is going to come out. You're able to keep in touch with them?
Yes, we absolutely have. So Premier Winde went to go and visit them yesterday. And so what we've got is, as we get updates and we get confirmations, they just around the corner from us in a building here. So we then send some of our command staff there just to brief them, just so that they know what's going on. Because, yesterday, the day before, for example, well, not yesterday, but the day before, we weren't using cranes because we were able to tunnel in without that. And there were questions, why aren't you using cranes, things like that. And we just need to explain to them why we're doing it, and I think since that has started happening, I think people are, a lot more understanding of what we have to do.
Colin Danier, thank you very much indeed. Strength to you and your crews. Chief Director of the Western Cape Disaster Management, you with SFM, 18 minutes after 7. Well, more details have started to emerge about the construction project. Officials have said the company in charge of the site is called Neo Trend Groups, or Neo Victoria. The construction contractor is called Leotel Developments. We do know the 5-story building was still being constructed, that artisans were on site installing equipment in the building. The people involved in constructing it not doing interviews at this point, but obviously different views coming through. So, for example, from the Leotel Group, they've expressed their condolences to the people who've died. They say that their main priority is to help in the rescue efforts in any way possible, and that they are committed to cooperating with the authorities. Gundo Maswima is a lecturer in the University of Cape Town Civil Engineering Department. Gundo, good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
From all of the eyewitnesses who saw what happened, they all have a few elements of their story in common. They say the building collapsed very quickly, literally in a matter of seconds. There was no warning, and they all say it was sort of just like that. Does that tell us anything about what might have led to this collapse?
It is not sufficient, but it does have some pointers. There are different ways in which a structure can collapse. So there is a lean on collapse where one wall leans onto another one and collapses, goes to the side. A pancake collapse where normally when a floor gets fully dislodged on top and everything just comes crumbling down. So that description or is hinting towards that type of collapse. However, it is only when a structural engineer will take the designs and analyze them in retrospect. So that is part of forensic analysis, which is an established discipline in structural engineering in South Africa. So they're still going to have to go through that. And if the designs do not have anything untoward, it will then go to the construction methods. Did they order the process correct? That is now the contractor. And then they will have to check from the material that's on site if there's any inferior material that has been used that could have been the cause of that. So they are all different combinations. But the discipline is quite advanced enough that they will be able to find out what actually happened.
I presume, and I've seen actually pictures of the plans this morning, they're publicly available as I understand it. When the plans are submitted, another engineer checks, right? So someone would check the plan before anyone even starts pouring concrete.
Yes, the company that is responsible for the designs will do the designs. Within the company, it goes through various stages of quality control. So they will have been the ultimate signature from within the company. Then they are submitted to the municipality, the building control. And within the building control, they should be able also to check the drawings to see that they are in order, that the basic specifications have been covered. So for that reason, that is why though this happens from time to time, but it's not that common in the South African context. So our systems are so orderly and so organized that we don't have this happening very often for the rate at which we build.
So I mean, these designs would almost be in a way standard. I realize every building looks different, as I go into it. But they're sort of standard solutions to architectural problems and civil engineering problems that are used widely. You put this kind of box here and that kind of circle there, kind of thing.
Yes, but there is a certain level of uniqueness because we build in different construction sites. And another important factor that we consider is the geotechnical conditions, the bearing capacity of the soil under which the building is constructed. But in some places, you will find there's weak soil on one part of the building and stronger soil on another part. So you get something called differential settlement, which can start as almost a crack because one part of the building is going down while the rest is not going, it's not moving. So you can get a shear failure on the building. So even if you are using a standard design, or if you can, most companies that are in business, if you are building residential flats, you use the same plan in different places. Even if you are going to use that prototype, you still need to do a thorough investigation of the geotechnical conditions, because they can also be an issue. But it looks like there was a basement in this building, and a basement foundation is one of the much safer foundations, because you're actually digging deep in. A basement is a type of foundation, even though it's also a floor underground. So the likelihood that this would have been differential settlement also is much less, because it's unlikely that it could have been that type. Basement foundations normally hold quite well.
While the building is being constructed, is there any kind of inspection during that time, or is it only inspected after construction?
No, when the building, during construction, there is a representative from the company that did the design, who is called a resident engineer. So he is on site to make sure that what they are building is what has been designed. Then you also have other leader from the construction company, who is normally the contracts manager or the site manager. He also carries the responsibility for his team, because everyone who's working there, including the subcontractors, they are actually part of his team. So this is happening constantly. There's also a health and safety rep, according to the Occupational Health and Safety Act, who will be on site, who has a file, who has identified all the potential risks that are there. They are not typically engineers, so the real engineering risk it falls within the ambit of the resident engineer and the contracts manager.
Gundo Maswina, thank you very much indeed, from the Civil Engineering Department at the University of Cape Town. Really do appreciate the time. 26 minutes after 7.
The SABC Fortune Combo radio stations, which includes SAFM, Lotus FM, and Radio 2000, seek the services of a freelance graphic designer who will collaborate with cross-functional teams to create visually compelling assets that align with our receptive brand identities and resonate with our target audiences. The minimum requirements for the position are a bachelor's degree or diploma in graphic design, visual arts, or related field, 2 to 4 years proven experience as a graphic designer with a strong portfolio showcasing a range of design projects. All interested candidates should submit their CVs and portfolio of evidence to vacancy@safm.co.za. Application closed on the 26th of May 2024. For more detailed info, visit www.safm.co.za or follow us on our social media pages at SAFM Radio. SAFM, leading the conversation. This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
27 minutes after 7, Zai, good morning. The Springbok women are ready for that challenge.
Yes, Kenya. They better watch out. Having played Kenya twice in the last year, the Bok women are well aware, though, of the physical confrontation that awaits them in Antananarivo, Madagascar, this afternoon. That's at 12 midday when the two sides meet in the second round of the Rugby Africa Women's Cup. Now, according to the Springbok women captain, Nolu Sondiso Boy, the match today will be a physical affair, as the previous two turned out to be.
It's not going to be an easy game, and I see all the teams in this tournament, they come prepared. So as we know, Kenya always come physical and they are strong. So we just need to make sure that we play our shape and be ready for anything. I think they will challenge us on the outside because they are playing their offload game, of which they might come on the inside because each team changes structures every day when they are playing a new game. But we are up to the challenge. Whatever that they come, we'll be prepared for that.
Soccer action last night. Kaizer Chiefs let slip their 2-all. They lead, and then they ended up 2-all with TS Galaxy in a DStv Premiership match played at the Peter Mokaba Stadium last night. Another match, Cape Town City finally picking up their first win of 2024, beating Morocco Swallows 2-0 at the Athlone Stadium. Eric Tinkler's side climbing above SuperSport United into 6th place on goal difference, leaving the Dube Birds 6 points clear of the relegation zone in 13th position. Now, relegation threatened Cape Town Spurs secured a vital victory in their battle to stay in the Premiership, defeating Royal AM 1-0. SuperSport United were denied back-to-back wins following a 1-1 draw with Sekhukhune United. Cricket, Delhi Capitals clocking their 5th win in 7 games and condemning the Rajasthan Royals to their 2nd straight defeat. That's the latest from the IPL. The Royals could not reel in the Capitals, who set an imposing total of 221 from their 20 overs. South Africa's Tristan Stubbs hit 41 of 20 balls to provide the Capitals with a powerful finish, with Kuldeep Yadav, Mukesh Kumar and Khalil Ahmed sharing the 6 wickets in their successful defence. Cycling now, Jonathan Milan won the 4th stage of the Giro d'Italia following a sprint finish as Tadej Pogacar retained the overall lead. The little Trek rider Milan claimed the victory ahead of Caden Groves and Phil Barhaus. Here's Milan.
I mean, there's so many emotions now. I said from the beginning we came here with one goal for everyone. So today just the guys did an amazing job. It is such an amazing sensation to win again here in Giro d'Italia.
We'll bring you more sport on Sunrise. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Well, more about ratepayers in a moment. You're with SFM leading the conversation. Good morning. It's 7:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, the rescue mission in George in the Western Cape continues to focus on finding survivors after a multi-story building collapsed on Monday. 39 construction workers are still trapped under the rubble. 7 people have been declared dead. Power utility Eskom says it's moving away from using copper cables on its networks due to the high levels of cable theft. And the Board of Healthcare Funders has criticised government over the poor planning of the National Health Insurance Bill, as the state does not have enough funds to accommodate and provide quality health care. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Gen 3 is quite heavy this morning. Backlogs from Elands interchange in Germiston right up through Galulis, right to about Modderfontein Road before you're out of the traffic. Behind that, N12 and R24 routes in from the Ekurhuleni side to get into that N3 are quite heavy as well. The Mike 1's got a slightly different traffic pattern to it these days. A lot of it is traffic reacting to the closure of Smith Street around the Mike 1 highway. So from Goldreef City through that closure up through Empire and then up to about Oxford Road again before you feel you're out of that volume. Crash on the M1 North going up into John Foster Drive. The backlog of traffic is back on the N14 Krugersdorp Highway, back towards the R55 Pretoria West exit. The N4, the eMalahleni Highway into Pretoria, heavy queues again this morning from Watermeer Street, moving through towards the N1. Durban side, the M4 is heavy. This is a change-up. You've been getting through okay recently, but from Mere went through Jacobs and up towards Clarewood. M4 queuing heavily towards Durban, up towards the M7 Bluff exit area. The M7, by the way, is very heavy, getting down towards the Bluff. Queues from Queensborough to Bel-Air Wakesleep, and a crash on the N3 before Market Road. So coming out of Pietermaritzburg on your way to Durban, that's quite heavy today as well. Cape Town, the N2 inbound, a pedestrian down at Somerset West. That's a big queue. That collision just before Broadway Boulevard with peak hour volumes in the mix. That traffic parking right back through Gants Park. It's a heavy queue. N2 through Somerset West. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
In Taulengla, Chile, good morning. How are the markets looking this morning?
Well, in Asia, markets traded in negative territory. This follows mixed cues from Wall Street overnight as traders refrained from making big moves after hawkish comments from U.S. Fed officials. This then raised concerns about the outlook for interest rates. With that, the Japanese Nikkei shed 1.5% and the Chinese Shanghai index lost 0.4%. Moving over to the U.S., futures also tumbled as rate optimism cools and, of course, ahead of the consumer inflation print that could give us clues on policy makers' next moves. Back at home, the rate euphoria is also easing, with the all-share only gaining 0.2% in yesterday's trade. In your currencies, a stronger dollar is weighing on the local unit. It's currently trading at 18.55 from 18.50 yesterday.
And then attack has taken full control of the Mall of Africa.
Now, Stephen, Attack continues to bet on Mall of Africa's growth. Through its investment arm, the property group owns an 80% stake in the mall, but it recently upped its stake, acquiring the remaining 20% from Atterbury for just over R1 billion. This makes Attack the sole owner of Mall of Africa. Now, the company's CEO, Jackie van der Kerk, said the acquisition is in line with its strategy, and making it the sole owner will allow it to control the asset when it comes to influencing its growth and trade. Now, Mall of Africa is set to gain more foot traffic as it's poised to benefit from Waterfall City's ongoing densification. That's as Attack's investment arm implements its development pipeline in that area, which includes building new residential, logistics, and collaboration hubs, which would then drive more people in the Waterfall City area.
And then Combined Motor Holdings, they're feeling the pinch at the moment.
It really is. It's under strain. The automotive group has reported downbeat profits, with headline earnings falling 12% during the annual period. Now, these set of numbers come as consumers are hit by the brunt of the downbeat economy, more especially as consumers' disposable income takes a knock on the back of higher inflation and elevated interest rates. Now, the car market as a whole hasn't been performing well. Just last week, we spoke about new vehicle sales, where sales increased for the first time in 8 months in April. Even then, economists weren't sure that momentum could be sustained, and that sour sentiment is playing out at CMH, with the group's new vehicle sales falling 1.9%, and used car sales were also down, losing 3.8%. Despite the downbeat performance, the group is quite positive about its prospects, saying that its balance sheet remains strong.
Intalengla Chilla, thank you. Back, of course, tomorrow. More business news through the day here on SAFM. 25 minutes now to 8.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, plenty of calls coming through this morning. That is the number. The building collapse and, of course, the debate around the flag. Toby and Tswane, the building collapse in George. Hi.
Good morning.
Go for it.
Yes, the competent person would submit those building plans, but nowhere do you need to submit your structural plans. So there's no real assessment of the structural plans at the municipality level.
Really?
Yeah, so if you try and do work on an old building and try and get the structural plans, and say, for instance, that engineer died years ago, the chances of getting that is almost zero.
Okay, I mean, that seems like quite a big failure of the system then, from what you say.
We feel so.
Okay,
Yeah,
Toby, are you an engineer?
No, architect.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So we normally try and get the structural plans to basically see what you need to do, and as I say, on very few cases we actually get copies of that.
And I mean,
a competent person could be an architect or engineer, and as an architect you then say, I will need a structural engineer or whatever, civils, and then supply the name of the company, and they will sign the application form, but they don't have to actually submit their plans.
Do you know if it's different in other places? I mean, are other places stricter than we are?
I worked in Australia for 11 years, so they are a bit stricter.
Yeah.
It's just, as I say, it's one of those things where if you happen to have the original drawings, you're very lucky, but because they're not kept on file.
All right, Toby and Tswane, thank you for that. I do appreciate it. All right, more light coming through there from an architect. Corby on the line from KwaZulu-Natal. The flag, go for it.
Yes, Steve, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, Steve, being a journalist myself, this morning's interview you had with Scott was one of the interviews you've had to my satisfaction, honestly.
Thank you.
When you ask the Kodwa that, what about a contest? You know, ANC is only using every available tool. I mean, not a member of the DE, but the context of the banner of the flag. This is not a situation where DE had a rally somewhere and they burned the flag for whatever reason. Here, the reason is specifically stated in the advert that this is how the country is burning. So the flag was only representing the problems that are burning. And in the end, you ask again, but the flag resurrected that if you voted Party A or D or B, the flag will resurrect. But as it stands, the flag, which is a symbol of the country, is burning based on A, B. It listed, the advert categorically listed all those things that are represented in the flag that are burning. Hey, don't you think we are fools? They can run around this, call this a treason. What is the meaning of treason?
Yeah, okay.
So in fact, they are just using this as a political tool. It's not gonna win because DA did not wake up. Who doesn't know that all the things said in the advert are the realities of every South African here today? And here they're jumping, going to court on this.
Okay. Kobe, thank you. Strong view. Very interesting. Let's go to Takiso Maluti Pofong. Do you agree?
Good morning, President.
Go for it.
Even would you please close your eyes for 5 seconds and imagine if it was EFF that had the advert like that? Just imagine if it was the EFF.
What do you think would happen? Yeah.
No, there will be outrage everywhere. There will be even the IEC. I'm telling you, the IEC itself. They were trying to do all things and try to close the EFF from competing in the election. Stephen, let me tell you, the thing they should have done. Maybe they should have had the map of South Africa, Benny, not the flag.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So, because the flag means something else. The flag is, the map is a geographical representation, but the flag is emotional.
Thank you. At least the map, we will be talking this week. But that's what the flag. Those people, they don't love South Africa.
Okay. No, Tikiso, thank you. Strong view. As I say, strong views coming through on this. Loyiso in KwaZulu-Natal. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well, Loyiso. Go for it.
Okay. I'm worried about the people who focus too much on the symbolism and about the whole thing of the flag. The truth here is this. There is a name for this. It is called desecration of a national flag.
Yeah.
In many countries, including the old South Africa, where the DA leadership, Helen Zille, comes from, it was a crime to ban a flag or an image of the flag. Even if you just write a picture of a flag on a paper and ban the paper and not the flag, that would have still been a crime.
Yeah, all right.
In South Africa, we have not criminalized that. The fact that we haven't criminalized it doesn't change much. It just remains unpatriotic at best, but at worst, it's treasonous.
Okay, so you agree with the president then, Loyiso?
Yes, it borders on being treasonous, but we cannot call it treason because we haven't legislated it.
Yeah.
But it's unpatriotic at best.
So
half of the country, in fact, just to finish this line, more than half of the countries in the world have outlawed this, which means, and DA people are people of the world. They know this. They cannot do this in many countries in the world.
So, I find myself in this position, right, Loyiso, because I find, when I first saw the advert, it took my breath away because it's an emotional thing, right? But but my rational brain says that to say that you can burn this, and this, but not that, I worry that we go down a difficult road there.
Yes, it is. It's part of the culture we have inherited. Like we Africans, it's new, this idea of symbolism around the flag and the national anthem. But what we inherited from the Western kind of system is to understand what goes with the flag. For example, in the war, the standard, they used to call it the standard, the flag of a particular unit. Yeah. It's the standard. It's one of the most important things.
You have to capture it,
die for his standard. They would never let it fall on the ground. Even when everyone is falling, somebody just keeps the standard with spears and everything, left, right, and center. So the Western system have puts a lot of value and emphasis on flag. We inherited that. I learned to understand this. For example, I never understood tweak about the old South African flag. I was not interested.
Yeah.
But we were taught a bit about it. There was some small subject about patriotism that we were taught at school.
Can't imagine teaching that anyway during that time. Jeez, shouldn't laugh, but I mean, how do you teach that?
It is not. So a flag should not be taken in this literal level that if you can ban this, you can ban this.
Yeah.
For example, almost all of Europe, they outlaw banning of flags.
I don't know if that's true, Loyiso.
No, that is true. I know this for a fact. US and Australia is one of the few Western countries that allow the banning of a flag. But obviously, if you ban it, like Trump cannot ban it and without an outrage in the US. No, it's allowed by law.
It's a big thing in the US, that. Loyiso in KwaZulu-Natal, thank you. All right, we will hear from Andrew in Cape Town. We'll hear from Go For It in Springs. That's next as well. 16 minutes to 8.
Durban is yet again ready to welcome thousands of delegates and buyers who will be attending the Africa Travel Indaba at the Durban ICC from 13th to 16th May. The Indaba, that attracts delegates from across the globe, is the continent's leading travel showpiece. Hosting events of this magnitude continues to position Durban as a business and holiday destination of choice. Durban Tourism, together with community tourism organizations and local businesses, are eager to showcase that indeed Durban has more to offer. Durban is on the move. Join us at stand DEC 1G50. Durban is Africa's leading festival and event destination according to the World Travel Awards 2023.
The final stretch comes with high emotions and pressure keeps mounting. RB Leipzig are gunning for maximum points on home soil, but their visitors from Bremen believe in the power of 3 points. They want victory for themselves. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch RB Leipzig versus Werder Bremen on Saturday 11 May at 3 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. #We love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
7:45 the time. All right, taking your calls this morning. Loyiso, a moment ago I said I wasn't sure if it was true that it's illegal to burn a flag or to assault or desecrate a flag in all of Europe. From what I can check and from what I'm doing, Stuns have been able to check as well, it is illegal to burn flags or to desecrate flags in France, in Germany, in Spain, in Greece and other places. Not in the UK, which of course is no longer part of Europe. So Loyiso, I think you are right. Thank you for that. 14 minutes now to 8. To Springs we go. Go for it. Good morning.
Morning, Stephen. How are you?
I'm well. Nice nickname.
I'm good, man. Thanks. Stephen, can I just put on my 2 cents also in this?
Of course.
Flag thing. Stephen, the problem, if you can go and ask the what's the problem? The problem is ANC. It's not South Africa, because I'm the one who didn't vote for the only one that didn't vote for ANC, maybe vote for the other party. But then why are they banning the flag? Why can't they take the ANC flag and ban it?
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
It's not South Africa, it's ANC. They were supposed to take that flag for ANC, ban it, and then after that, and then they show their flag. That you see, if you remove this one, and then this is DA. DA is going to do better. So banning the flag was totally wrong. Totally wrong.
No, that's an interesting point, actually. In other words, you can't say that you're burning all of us. You can say you're burning your opponent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's the problem. DA, that's ANC. They're not talking about the other party, but the focus is on ANC, that is the ruling party. They must just ban their flag, not the South African flag.
All right, go for it. Interesting point. Thank you. Lots of interesting points coming through on this. It is, in some ways, it's a very simple debate. In some ways, it's actually quite a complex debate. Andrew in Cape Town, hi.
Yes, good morning.
first of all, I just want to make you understand that I'm not a member or an office bearer in any political party, if we can just get that.
Okay. I've had to ask lots of people that question. I've been very cynical recently. Anyway, go for it.
Fair enough. But having said that, I think you have to commend the DA for launching that ad. I mean, all of a sudden, whether you like it or not, the DA has been catapulted into the news, and it's surpassing at last the likes of Zuma and Malema and so on and so forth. Now, in that sense, it's a brilliant success. It's a gift that keeps on giving. And the more that people make a fuss about it, the more it pushes their viewpoint to the fore. And I suppose the question is, will it help or hinder the DA in its campaign? Now, I think those who've been critical of the ad, it is difficult to ascertain how many people have been really.
Yeah.
Because basically, you're relying on Twitter and a couple of loudmouths. I don't think they'd have voted DA anyway. And I don't think people who would have voted DA have now turned away. But I think what will happen is that this vast mass of people who are uninterested or didn't know which way to vote are suddenly confronted with a real hard issue. And I think it's at these people that this campaign was aimed, and I think in that sense it's also a brilliant move.
So it's aimed at, in political terms they call it's aimed at driving out turnout for them.
To a large extent. And also it's to raise awareness, and it's graphically depicting a situation which certainly against the DA's perception of a situation, but it's graphically and very effectively depicting a situation which makes people think. And I think in that sense it's successful. And I suppose, but to come back to the question whether this is moral or ethical and all that kind of thing, I see absolutely nothing that's legally, ethically, or morally dangerous about this. It's used as an effective symbol for what might occur. And what most people seem to... Sorry?
Is deliberately offending someone, causing them offence? I think some people might be distressed. I mean, I've been thinking, so let me make an argument in this way. I would suspect there's a large amount of overlap between, let me put it like this, probably almost everyone who supports the DA supports the Springbok rugby team, right?
I don't know about that.
Well, I think I could say there's a big overlap there. I mean, I'm not saying there's only DA supported. I don't know how members of the Springbok rugby team will feel about their flag being burned.
Well, they might be upset about it. I don't feel particularly upset about this flag being burned because it is an effective, very effective symbol of what is going wrong here. And I think what most people also ignore is that the advert ends with the flag being restored and resuscitated. And that is the point of this whole thing. That is the point of this whole thing that people are missing. Yes, people will get upset, and they're entitled to be upset. But that doesn't change the fact that this is a fairly clever representation of what is going on. But also having said that, nobody has the right not to be offended.
Sure. No, sure, I accept that.
Sorry? I'd also just like to say that, the people are saying, why not burn the ANC flag or burn the map of the country? It's not the ANC that's burning. Well, yes, it is burning in its own accord. But the issue here is the country that's burning. And your most effective symbol of that is the flag. And so I think that's way on point there. And might I just say, this kind of response that you're getting from government and supporters is fairly typical of a country that is in decline, and the resorting to symbols is all that it has left. And this is typically the kind of thing that you see happening. I mean, you can't eat a flag. The fact that you change the name of a street or a town doesn't mean that the ambulance is going to get to you quicker when you're dying. This is all excessive symbolism that people are kind of making a fuss about. Kind of, don't touch me on my symbol. And I don't think that's going to get anywhere.
All
just
right.
a last point, if I may. Just the response from some people has been quite predictable. My wife's told me that she heard about this advert and said, just watch certain people are going to come out of the woodwork and start complaining. You can predict almost exactly. And lo and behold, by the next day, at least two people whom she predicted were talking about this in negative terms. You watch also the media. And so straight away I said, watch the Daily Maverick. There's certain contributors there are going to be saying exactly the same thing.
Okay.
And you'll see the same thing in the Sunday Times. There's a lot of predictability about this.
Well,
and just finally, one last point, if I may.
Andrew.
Listen, burning a flag is better than burning a person. and we quite happily scored people in the wrong time.
No,
And,
Andrew, okay, Andrew, I'm going to stop it there. I think you've said enough. Maybe too much, actually. 8 minutes to 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, if you're trying to negotiate Bryanston this morning, anywhere around Bryanston Crossing, it's an absolute mess. All the lights are down. That's William Mandela at Grosvenor at Main, and William Mandela at Main as well. So all approaches, all directions, heavily backed up around that Grosvenor Crossing area. We had a crash a little bit earlier on the N1 going north before Buata Avenue in Centurion. That's a big queue. This is a big deal. Traffic parking all the way back on the N14, Krugersdorp Highway, back towards the R55 exit. So if you don't exit the N14 on your way to Pretoria at that R55 off-ramp, you're in for the long haul, right through to Brockfontein, and then right through John Foster and right through to Buata Avenue. On your way to Pietermaritzburg, a crash, on your way leaving Pietermaritzburg, on your way to Durban, a crash down by Market Road. That's a backlog right through to Chota Mortala area. M7 from North Dean up into St John's Avenue Bridge territory, going into Pinetown, stays heavily back this morning. In Cape Town, the Stellenbosch Arterial Road stays under pressure from the Kales Riverside through towards Symphony Way. Big queues this morning, making your way slowly through that Delft area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Rise to the occasion with Season 5 of the Taste Master SA, Tuesday evenings at 7 on SABC2. Follow the delicious journey as 14 of the country's best baking talents compete to impress the judges and claim the title. Only one will be crowned the Taste Master and win the grand prize valued at more than 400,000 Rand. That's Tuesdays at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. on SABC2.
Miss South Africa 2024 entries are officially open, and if you are ready to answer the call and become Miss SA 2024, your time is now. Step into your power and embrace your future. Entries close at 6 p.m. on the 8th of May. Go to missa.co.za or download the Miss South Africa app and enter now.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
5 minutes to 8. We're still calls coming through, of course, about the flag and about the George building collapse. In eThekwini, though, ratepayers there still furious at the amount of money that has now been approved in terms of tariffs by the eThekwini Council. There's been a lot of pushback to the increases that eThekwini wanted to impose. Then there was a consultation process. Some of those tariffs have been reduced slightly. Residents say they're still angry at this. Ish Pralat is the president of the eThekwini Ratepayers and Residents Association. Ish, good morning.
Morning to you and morning to listeners.
As I understand it, the proposed rates were reduced slightly. Why do you believe they're still too high?
Now, with this type of increase, ratepayers are worried about how they will afford to pay the municipal bills. Residents are borrowing money to pay the high bills at residents. Residents are signing AODs at municipal offices just to keep the lights on. Can you imagine after the increase, the added stress of debt, the stress to ensure that the residents have sufficient funds to pay the bills? This is going to have a very negative impact on the residents. As it is, they are suffering to pay the bills. We have been doing interviews, and it's sad to see how pensioners have, from 300 Rand, have got 6,000 Rand bills on the electricity and water. How are they going to manage?
Has there been any improvement in services in eThekwini at all? I mean, I realize that, and there's some things we need to just separate out here. So for electricity, for example, that price is set by NERSA. eThekwini doesn't have much control over that. There's some other things like maybe sanitation, maybe refuse removal that they do have some control over. Have those services improved?
Okay, no, they're not. I mean, 2 to 3 weeks, you get services coming back to you. And the loss of water, like 58%, if they saved it to 10%, they would have 300 million in the kitty, which would be less burden to the ratepayer and the resident. What about the buildings that are standing? Moses Mabhida, City Hall, all those were revenue-making buildings. Now they white elephants. Those could also be less burden to the ratepayer and residents.
Is there do you have any optimism that anything is going to change? I mean, I've been watching, from Joburg, but closely, the relationship between ratepayers and the city of eThekwini, because it's so interesting. It's a very difficult situation at the moment. Is there any prospect of it improving?
We are talking to the leaders of the municipality, but they are so adamant that they have put this increase in. But you know what? We have other options which we're going to take, and it's going to be on our Facebook page. And we are saying the ratepayer and the resident has the might, not the municipal leaders. They cannot spend 29 million on cars. They cannot take the increases. They must shove the increases. They must not take any increases and do not renew their cars and put that money back into the kitty.
Ish Pralab, thank you, President of the eThekwini Ratepayers and Residents Association. As you can hear, people there very angry. I think in other cities too, but eThekwini there's been a particular focus for various reasons. 2 minutes to 8.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
All right, more calls coming through. Gift on the line from the Eastern Cape. And Gift, I must just remind you as a spokesperson for the ANC there. Gift, hi, the collapse in George, horrific, eh?
Good morning, Stephen. Good morning to your listeners. Look, Stephen, I was just speaking to my wife early this morning with the land planner about the implications of buildings collapsing once the plans that were approved. And I think I concur with the other guest that you had. I think is the architect.
Yeah.
But these kinds of issues are very serious. They must not be taken for granted, Stephen. Because my observation, and this is what I've been asking yesterday, that why we were not told about the company, that in fact about this construction company. And one particular guy last night was saying to me, no, in fact there's a disclosure clause where they cannot name the name of the company that has been involved. They can name the developer, but they cannot name the company. And I find this very intriguing because
but we've had, from what I can see, the name of the developer and the name of the contractor are public at the moment.
Oh, by the way, yesterday they were not yet in public. I'm sure it's just recent. But I
think it was that press conference yesterday afternoon where the Premier was speaking, where it was announced there.
I missed that part, but I know for a fact that media was going to be on a fishing expedition if it was a black company. And I'm not trying to put race on this matter because, to me, black lives have been lost in that disaster, and I think someone must be held accountable. But the last thing, Stephen, that I want to raise is this issue of the flag. There was someone who called in, I think it's Ngobi. I think Ngobi was talking nonsense. This is not an ANC flag. This is a South African flag. And I think some people must stop this hatred of ANC. Everything that happens in the country, they will associate with ANC. Because to me, I think the DA ad was very outrageous, and it crosses the line, Stephen. Look, Stephen, you will recall the flag, Stephen, is neither artistic expression nor protest. Yeah. It's a subversion of the very good idea of South Africa. In fact, Stephen, it is worse than displaying the apartheid flag. So often that this particular party that has banned this flag is represented in Parliament. This is very intriguing to me, and I think they just crossed the line. But look, I think DA is displaying disdain because they always assume that Western Cape is their own domain, and that's why they even had this idea that they want to separate Western Cape from South Africa.
All right, Gift, thank you. As I say, spokesperson for the Eastern Cape, for the ANC in the Eastern Cape. You are there, SFM, leading the conversation. It's 8 o'clock. Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, search for survivors continues in George building collapse and Eskom moving away from using copper cables on its networks. Good morning. The rescue mission in George in the Western Cape continues to focus on finding survivors after a multi-story building collapsed on Monday. The Western Cape Minister of Local Government, Anton Bredal, says the K9 unit is key in finding survivors.
We stand now on 36 people that we managed to get out. Unfortunately, 7 deceased, but 39 still looking for. We will take the dogs and walk the site again with the dogs. They detect the life, and then we will focus on getting those people out. That's the main focus currently.
Meanwhile, COSATU in the Western Cape are demanding the owners and management of the construction company of the collapsed building in George be held liable for the deaths, injuries and loss of earnings of affected workers. The apartment building was being developed by a private company, the Neo-Trend Group ICE Projects. COSATU spokesperson Melvin de Bruin says the workers and their families should be afforded all the necessary relief as provided for by the Compensation Fund for Occupational Injuries and Diseases. In election-related news, the Department of Sports, Recreation, Arts and Culture has criticised the DA for its controversial election advert showing images of the South African flag going up in flames. Ministerial spokesperson of the department, Lita Mpondwana, says the department is considering legal action against the advert and the party.
The Democratic Alliance decided to offend and insult the nation by showing a political advertisement depicting the burning of our national flag. The minister adds that South Africa's flag represents our nationhood. It represents the coming together of our people. The South African flag symbolizes unity in our diversity and represents the hopes and aspirations of our nation. As custodian of all national symbols, which include the South African flag, the minister strongly condemns this advertisement.
Power utility Eskom says it's moving away from using copper cables on its networks due to the high levels of cable theft. An increase in the global copper price between 2020 and 2021 led to Eskom and other electricity distribution and consumer companies such as Johannesburg City Power and Transnet losing billions of rand to cable theft. The recent cable theft incident on the M1 South that resulted in a fire and plunged parts of the Johannesburg CBD into darkness for days has brought the problem back under the spotlight. Eskom Gauteng spokesperson Amanda Ngiti.
We are moving away from using copper because we have seen that it is quite in demand. So whenever we have any cable that has been stolen, we do not replace it with copper. With regards to technology, we do install vibration sensors in the cable so that if somebody tries to steal the cable, it could send a signal to our control room and we can dispatch security to investigate if indeed somebody is trying to steal the cable.
And finally, the Board of Healthcare Funders has criticised government over the poor planning of the National Health Insurance Bill, as the state does not have enough funds to accommodate and provide quality healthcare. This was one of the key findings tabled at the Board of Healthcare Funders' 23rd Annual Conference in Cape Town. Managing Director of Board of Healthcare Funders, Dr. Katlego Mutudi, says in order for the state to accommodate everyone, it will have to raise taxes for it to continue with the bill, which then affects the people who are already struggling to make ends meet.
For the state to be able to cater for everyone, it has to find money somewhere, money that is equivalent to what the medical aid sector at least is spending, which is about 250 billion rand on a yearly basis. The implications are worrisome because it means that the state would have to raise taxes, which means that you either have to increase VAT by a considerable amount, which means you're actually hurting the poor.
Recapping the top story, the rescue mission in George in the Western Cape continues to focus on finding survivors after a multi-story building collapsed on Monday. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, rugby action. The Springbok women taking on Kenya today around midday, aiming for a victory in the second round of the Rugby Africa Women's Cup. And crucial Premier Soccer League clashes tonight, which includes Mamelodi Sundowns taking on Golden Arrows and Orlando Pirates up against Chippa United. Kickoff at 7:30. We'll bring you all this and more just before 8:30.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. OUTsurance, where you always get something out. Listen up, you could be paying too much for car insurance. Be like 56-year-old Quinton, who called OUTsurance for a quote and pays just 666 Rand per month to insure his white 2023 Hyundai Venue Motion. Do you think you could find a great deal too? SMS out to 30754 and get an OUTsurance quote today. That's out to 30754. License, insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Update on the M1 in Centurion. A crash between John Foster and Buerta Avenue is badly back traffic up, but it's just now been moved to the left shoulder, so all of those lanes that were obstructed are reopening. It will take a while for the traffic to backlog. It is stuck on the N14 Pretoria bound, back at the R55 Pretoria West exit, so all lanes open, but a queue to work through there. N3 Germiston via Galulis up to Edenvale stays a heavy one today. Plenty of traffic around Durban, the M4, the Southern Freeway, queuing up in towards the city centre. It was being held up a little bit earlier around Clarewood and Jacobs, but that's been released and it's still just backlogging up towards the Esplanade. The M7 into Pinetown starting to ease, which is good news. The N2 still queuing from the M7 up through Spaghetti Junction into the roadworks, and an earlier crash on the N3 at Pietermaritzburg down by Market Road is the reason you're sitting back towards sort of Chotamotala in that central Pietermaritzburg area. It's quite a lot of traffic to work through there. Cape Town Stellenbosch Arterial stays slow between Cales River and the Bell High area this morning. Issues there around Symphony Way, and Jake Scoville drive under a bit of pressure moving up from Epping in towards Fort Trekker Road, Goodwood. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
8 after 8, good morning, you're with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Look, obviously big conversations around what's happening in George, watching that very closely this morning. I've heard various voices on that this morning. Big debates, of course, around the national flag, as you would expect. The DA's advert burning the flag, and then it's sort of coming together at the end, but important conversations around that. And then as well, in the next little while, we'll talk a bit more about cybersecurity. We'll talk about political party funding. It's a crucial conversation, that one. And then from 8:30 this morning, we'll look at what's happening with online retail. Amazon started in South Africa yesterday officially. Everyone says it's going to shake up retail. Well, we'll find out. You're with SFM 9 after 8.
Join us on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3, as we ask what makes a good friend with therapist Kim Abrahams. Social worker Tobeka Mbogazi shares how to move on from toxic friendships. And gents, get your buddies and make a delicious bacon and wors pasta. That's Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m. Only on S3.
The University Registrar and Secretary to Convocation, Dr. Joel Baloy, cordially invites all members of the University of Venda Convocation to attend the AGM on Saturday, 11 May 2024 in Polokwane, Meropa Hotel at 10:30. The AGM will consider the Vice-Chancellor State of Campus Report, the President of Convocation Report, and amendments to the Constitution of the Convocation. To RSVP and confirm attendance, please visit www.univen.ac.za/announcements or contact Mr. Mashuda Ramarebo on 060-906-1902.
EFC is live this Thursday. Two grappling wizards will battle it out for the vacant welterweight title at EFC 113 as Gelson Souza and Zakir Banat fight it out for championship glory. Plus, Faiz Jacobs is out for revenge against the great Sylvester Chifumbu for #1 contendership. EFC 113 live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Agenda-setting conversations of the day.
10 after 8, good morning, you with SAFM. All right, still lots of calls coming through, many of them about the flag. Let's start with, is it PC in Polokwane? PC, hi.
Yes, Steve, how are you?
Yeah, I'm well. Look, does PC stand for something?
Yes, it stands for Paswadi Cedric.
Okay, so it doesn't stand for politically correct. I thought maybe you were making a comment.
or a personal computer.
Yes.
Look, Steve, I see DA has actually hit the nail on the head here with the advert. Because look, at this time of the year, campaigning season, all you need is to attract attention of potential voters. And they have succeeded in that. And, we should give them a pat on the shoulder. But I must indicate that, Steve, I'm not holding any mandate for anyone. I'm here as an independent, right? Fine. And it is also not always straightforward when in an advert that the message will be straightforward. Sometimes you have to interpret the message. I don't know how many adverts I've watched on TV, and after watching them many times, when that, so this is the message. So in this instance, it is very strange that despite the fact that there is a message in the advert, the critics are not looking at the message. They are actually looking at the image. And if you have not watched or seen this advert, you will think that it is an actual flag that is burning. Whereas it is actually a paper image of a flag. And for that purpose, for that reason, people will be flocking to watch it. Then they will realize that, but this is not a flag that is burning. It's actually an image of a paper image of it. But then it would have been a different if there was no difference, if there was no message behind the advert to say that, look, this represents, it's an artistic work, if you ask me, to say that they could have just put the flag burning and then turn the screen around and then you see the flag being rebuilt. Then you will interpret that, okay, this is the situation that we are now. The country is on fire, or we are in a bad state now. Vote DA, and then you will see things will change. So for President Ramaphosa and the minister to come on the bandwagon, they have actually played in the hands of the DA to publicize the advert. Why the other political parties are not making such noise is that they know that no publicity is bad publicity. So they are not going to assist the DA in achieving what they wanted to achieve. That is the attention. But of importance, Steve, is the message behind the whole advert. But the freedom of speech is also still an issue here. You can't really lay a charge because, of course, it's not a criminal offense to ban a flag, but it is a symbol of a protest. When you see people banning a flag, you will, before you judge them why they are banning the flag, you must ask them, hey, why are you banning the flag? They will give you different reasons. And then you can then determine that, no, these are hooligans. No, these are dissatisfied members of the community. Oh, okay, these are racists. You see? Sure. But in this instance, I think it is unfair to judge the banning of the flag by the DA as something as should be condemned.
Sure.
But message, they have nailed it, Steve. They have nailed it.
All right, PC and Polokwane, thank you. Very interesting views there coming through. Lots of diverse views on this. 8:15.
I'm concerned for my children's future. Our country is in a state of chaos. The government has failed the people of South Africa, and other parties cannot bring us together. We need real change. Herman Mashaba is South Africa's Mr. Fix-It. He's a patriotic businessman who knows how jobs are created. He cleaned up Johannesburg and had a caring heart for people of all races. On 29 May, vote for South Africa and our collective future. Vote for ActionSA, because only action will fix South Africa.
This political election broadcast was brought to you in terms of the Gaza regulation governing the election period. The views expressed in this political election broadcast are those of the political party and not of the SABC.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Well, one of the big things that happened yesterday was that President Cyril Ramaphosa signed the new party funding bill into law. And what this would appear to mean is that now there's no cap on the amount of money that people can give to political parties without having to disclose it. In the past, and you'll know, under the Political Party Funding Act, we started to see people having to disclose larger donations that they had made, and the Electoral Commission every quarter, every now and then, would release some of that information. Let's find out how it's all changed. Grant Masterson is an election specialist at the Electoral Institute for Sustainable Democracy in Africa. Grant, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
Does this mean parties no longer have to tell us who funds them?
As of the time that the president signed the bill into law, yes, that's correct. As of right now, there is no cap on the private donations that are allowable under the amendments to that particular Political Party Funding Act, which I think is a step backwards for transparency and accountability for all political parties in South Africa. we've only had the reporting of the funding of political parties for a period of 3 years now, and still bugs being worked out in that system, and now we have taken a step backwards. So yes, as of right now, that is the status of the Act.
It's quite something, because what we've seen during this, I suppose, brief period of transparency is how important the role that rich people, heirs and heiresses in some cases, and companies play in supporting parties. Now, all of that will continue. We just won't know about it.
That's right, and that's because the cap on what is allowable as a private donation, in other words, a donation that is not required by the Act to be declared, has been taken away. So previously, if you wanted to make an anonymous donation to a party and stay below the radar, then you were limited in a financial year to 999,999 Rand. But now, with taking that cap away, all of the individuals who've been donating up to the maximum allowable donation of 25 million Rand, and some of those heiresses and corporations you're talking about have had to declare those donations to the big parties, those will no longer, by law, have to be declared.
Does it also mean that a foreign government could, fund a political party, fund them to the hilt, give them billions, and we wouldn't know about it?
No, because the Act does specifically limit the extent to which foreign entities can fund political parties. Any entity that is linked to a foreign government, those provisions of the Act have not changed in the amendment. So what the impact of the signing into the Act today has really been about the limitations on what you must declare. All other aspects of the Act have not been touched. It's just that aspect of the amounts and the limits that have been touched. So previously, foreign governments, foreign entities were not allowed to fund political parties, and now that remains the same. So the entirety of the change is around the amounts and the limits.
Are regulations going to have to come in under this Act, which is often what follows an Act, and will that change it? I mean, could the President impose caps? Is that how this is going to work now?
So that is where the issue has come in, Stephen. Initially, that was the proposal, that the President could unilaterally adjust the limits within a financial year to create a little bit more flexibility. Political parties have been saying that the current strictures of the Act have been very limiting for their ability to fundraise. And so the proposal was that we allow the president of the country to exercise his own judgment on what an appropriate amount would be to allow them to set a limit and a bar for maximums in terms of declaration, as well as maximums in terms of donation. But then this was deemed to be an unconstitutional element because it would impinge on the rights of Parliament to set the laws, giving that power to the President. And so at the very last minute, they simply removed that stipulation, the effect of which has really been to remove limits in their entirety. There is a proposal in Parliament to fix this issue, but as of right now, that proposal in Parliament has not gone through. So as we stand right now, there are apparently no limits on private donations allowable to political parties.
Grant, I think I can say this apolitically. This is bad for democracy, full stop, right?
It's not good. No, the political party funding bill, with the Act, has been a step forward for accountability, for transparency, for informed voting choices by voters. We have been able to see who are these rich donors who are giving money to political parties. We've also been able to see how donors themselves play all sides, that they are giving money to all of the parties. Some people giving up to the maximum allowable 25 billion to both the ANC and the DA and ActionSA, as an example. And so it's been very good to have that transparency, that accountability. The fact that we no longer have that assurance that the IEC will publish what we know, what we know about the funding, that's not good for democracy, because it means that the voters are not making informed choices the way that we were in the past 3 years. So it's definitely a step backwards.
Grant Masterson, thank you. Election specialist at the Electoral Institute for Sustainable Democracy in Africa.
Greenpeace is on a mission for a greener world. We're all about making the switch from fossil fuels to renewable energy because it's just common sense, right? Don't buy into the hype about oil and gas. They'll only make our climate crisis and extreme weather worse. We're pushing for real change, like in Mpumalanga, where we teamed up with MS Environmental Projects, who just won in court against the municipality for pollution. So when it's time to vote, remember to say yes to renewable energy. Swing by greenpeace.org/Africa to join the movement.
City lads, ladies can't wait to get out of the bottom half, and they understand that victory will elevate them from their current position. However, JVW ladies want a win to secure a better position in the top half. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the queens of the beautiful game, City Lads Ladies FC versus JVW Ladies FC, on Sunday 12 May at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. #We love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The Science of Life on SAFM.
23 minutes after 8. Well, a new survey from the security company Cisco, the cybersecurity company, say that around 73% of companies believe that their activities will be disrupted by a cybersecurity incident in the next 2 years. But only 5% of them have what's described as a mature readiness level. Kabelo Letswalo is a cybersecurity specialist at Cisco. Kabelo, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I mean, we always hear about this. We've done story after story about this company's been disrupted, this company's had the WannaCry attack or whatever. Why are people still not prepared for this kind of thing?
Stephen, there's two things to mention around this. It's mainly around the threat landscape and the evolution of the threats themselves. So the current infrastructure versus the threats themselves, that's where the disparity comes in. And this is where we're seeing the gaps come in.
I don't know what you mean by that. You mean that people just aren't prepared, or people have designed systems that are too easy to infiltrate or too difficult to protect?
So it's the two. People are underprepared, as well as they're overconfident with the current infrastructure that they have. But then if we look at the threats themselves, they take quite a different form in all shapes and forms, especially with the new techniques and the new things that are available like AI. So yes, there is a level of underpreparedness, and there is a level of infrastructure that needs to be at a level or operate at a level of the current threat landscape.
How expensive is it to keep yourself secure? It can cost an absolute fortune, can't it? You have to keep changing all the time. You have to have someone in charge of it. You have to pay them. I mean, it must be an expensive game.
Yes, that is true. But as part of the findings and recommendations is around leveraging some of the things that are there. Leveraging things like AI to automate some of the functions, even leveraging and outsourcing to experts that can handle this. Because another gap that we're seeing as part of this is the skill shortage in country as well as globally. So that also plays an important factor where we're seeing 77% of companies say there's also a talent gap that's posing this.
I mean, this is a problem around the world. Is the problem, are our companies less prepared than companies in the United States where oil pipelines and hospitals have been held to ransom?
That is true. So if we measure South Africa, they're ranked at 5%, where globally they're at 3% of maturity level. Right, so we are in par with the global index study. So we are meeting them at par. If we look at locally, the skill shortage is one that's huge, but if we look at the investment that's been done internationally, it's quite large as compared to our local markets, and they're still hearing the same threats. Hence, we're saying there's a little bit of underpreparedness and overconfidence.
I don't know how many people in the working world have been told by an IT person that it will work and it never does, Kabelo. I hope I don't insult you when I say that. So, that overconfidence. Do people need to change their attitudes a little bit then?
Yes, as well as there's a couple of things that we can look at. One, as part of the recommendations, is first of all, investing, and we're seeing the security investment ramp up, mainly because people looked at connectivity as a primary source, and leaving security as like the neglected child. So now we're seeing cybersecurity investment ramp up, and it's mainly due to the attacks that we're seeing. Second is stay in the know of the attacks, right? We're seeing a lot of new techniques, especially around developments with AI. We urge companies to stay in the know around AI development as well as leverage AI to defend against attacks and also continuously reevaluate. So a good security strategy is one that's continuously tested and measured. I think that's the recommendations that we're giving.
Kabelo, thank you. Kabelo Letswalo is a cybersecurity specialist at Cisco. Really do appreciate it. 27 minutes after 8.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. The Rugby Africa Women's Cup.
Yes, a big day for our Springbok women. They'll be taking on Kenya. It's a match all happening in Madagascar and Antananarivo. Now, as that intensity builds, midday is the kickoff. All eyes will be on Captain Lolusindiso Boy, who marks a significant milestone, playing in her 44th Test match, becoming the most capped player for South Africa. This historic moment adds to the excitement as the Springbok women look to dominate on the field. Let's hear directly from Lolusindiso Boy sharing her thoughts on this landmark game.
It's not going to be an easy game, and I see all the teams in this tournament, they come prepared. So as we know, Kenya always come physical and they are strong. So we just need to make sure that we play our shape and be ready for anything. I think they will challenge us on the outside because they are playing their offload game, of which they might come on the inside because each team changes structures every day when they are playing a new game. But we are up to the challenge. Whatever that they come, we'll be prepared for that.
Now, more rugby in a historic first. Holly Davidson will referee the Springboks as they face Portugal in a test match this July in Bloemfontein. This event not only marks the first encounter between the Springboks and Portugal in a test match, but also celebrates Davidson's groundbreaking role as the first woman to officiate a Springboks test. Now, tonight's Premier Soccer League action is set to dazzle. Mamelodi Sundowns, the already crowned league champions, will face Golden Arrows in a display of their continued dominance. Orlando Pirates will square off against Chippa United in a crucial bout, with Pirates pushing for that top 4 finish. Polokwane City and Richards Bay go head-to-head in a battle to steer clear of relegation. And completing the lineup, Stellenbosch FC will take on Amazulu. Both sides eager to climb the PSL table. You can catch all the action kicking off at 7:30 tonight. Now, the highly anticipated Champions League semi-final between Real Madrid and Bayern Munich has Carlo Ancelotti, Real Madrid's manager, come to the defense of Jude Bellingham regarding an incident involving Harry Kane during the first leg. Bellingham made headlines when he attempted to distract Kane as he prepared to take a penalty kick, seeking to give Bayern an edge. Now, when questioned about Bellingham's action aimed at unsettling Kane, Ancelotti expressing his support, emphasizing Bellingham's character and his amicable relationship with Kane.
I think Jude is a fantastic guy. I think he respects everyone, and he has a really good relationship with Harry Kane. I think for the national team, there are no problems.
We'll bring you more sport on SAFM at around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thank you. Online retailing, the arrival of Amazon. That's next. You're with SAFM leading the conversation, 8:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, the Constitutional Court is today expected to hear 3 matters in which the Independent Electoral Commission is the respondent. In a last-ditch effort, the African Congress for Transformation, the Labour Party and the African Alliance of Social Democrats will seek the intervention of the Apex Court. Emergency workers are continuing this morning to try and retrieve 39 people who are still trapped in the collapsed apartment building that was under construction in George in the Western Cape. And Israel has been bombing the southern Gaza Strip overnight after taking control of the key crossing point with Egypt yesterday. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy on the N14. This is the Krugersdorp Highway if you're Pretoria bound this morning. If you don't exit at the R55 and look for alternatives, you're going to be stuck all the way through to the N1 Brockfontein interchange. Delays getting into Sandton. A crash on Rivonia Road down by Greyston Drive. Now, that's causing quite a backlog from the Morningside area. It would also appear to be holding up traffic on South Road that links into Rivonia Road for a turn into that traffic delay. The Mike 1 also staying busy with the crash at Carr Street on the Mike 1 North. So very slow still coming through from the Boyson side. Durban, the big traffic into the M7, St John's Avenue Bridge territory, into Pinetown, that's all eased up. That traffic flow has been bad this morning, but if you're going in now, it's actually okay. No traffic lights on Cape Town's Jakes Curville Drive at Frans Conradi. That's a busy junction in the Goodwood area. Still plenty of traffic on the M3 as well, from Wynberg Hill all the way through UCT and up towards Hospital Bend. That's a busy run in. And we're still queuing on the N2 inbound at Somerset West, approaching a crash just before Broadway Boulevard. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The SABC Fortune Combo radio stations, which includes SAFM, Lotus FM, and Radio 2000, seek the services of a freelance graphic designer who will collaborate with cross-functional teams to create visually compelling assets that align with our receptive brand identities and resonate with our target audiences. The minimum requirements for the position are a bachelor's degree or diploma in graphic design, visual arts, or related field, 2 to 4 years proven experience as a graphic designer with a strong portfolio showcasing a range of design projects. All interested candidates should submit their CVs and portfolio of evidence to vacancy@safm.co.za. Application closed on the 26th of May 2024. For more detailed info, visit www.safm.co.za or follow us on our social media pages at SAFM Radio.
SAFM, leading the conversation.
Miss South Africa 2024 entries are officially open, and if you are ready to answer the call and become Miss SA 2024, your time is now. Step in to your power and embrace your future. Entries close at 6 p.m. on the 8th of May. Go to missa.co.za or download the Miss South Africa app and enter now.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
26 minutes to 9 the time. Good morning. Yesterday morning, one of the giants of international retail started operating formally in South Africa. Amazon switched on its South African website. In the last 20 years or so, Amazon has completely revolutionized retail in the US and in other parts of the world. First, it sold books out of a garage. Then it sold e-readers. And then it started to sell almost anything that is manufactured and can be transported. In the process, shopping has changed. Many people no longer ever go to a shopping mall or to any kind of store for any kind of shopping. Of course, for several years, we've had some sites that are a lot like Amazon. For example, Takealot and others have been selling goods online. But the sheer size of Amazon, its international supply chains, may provoke changes in our retail sector. So then, how important is the launch of Amazon in South Africa, and how is retail changing? First this morning, Bronwyn Williams is a trend translator at Flux Trends. Then Zwelaka Mnguni is the Bengula Global Fund Manager's Chief Investment Officer and co-founder. We'll ask what is happening in the world of retail here. And Kevin Tucker is the founder of the website Price Check. What impact will this have on pricing? We start then with Bronwyn Williams. Bronwyn, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. Thanks for inviting me back.
How has the business of retail changed in the last 20 years?
Yeah, well, I think as you said, like the shift towards the so-called hermit consumer, that's people that are spending money at home rather than on location, is massive. And we're talking like a sort of I think it's like a $60 to $80 billion shift globally as to where purchase transactions are taking place. So that's pretty big. Obviously, that was accelerated during COVID as a whole lot of new people got used to ordering in for both necessity reasons and for convenience reasons. And it's a trend that's unlikely to disappear.
Is it possible to see how much it'll change over the next 20 years? I mean, the change is still happening. It may ebb and flow a little bit, but it seems sort of one-way traffic.
It does a bit, although there are sort of pushbacks on the more sort of socio-political sphere, in that already there's sort of rumblings around rights for the gig workers who are fulfilling the sort of convenience for a different strata of the economy. So effectively what this has done is put class lines across consumption. So there's sort of the servant class, and then of course there's the served class, right? So of course you might not be paying a full-time servant, but you are essentially renting servants to effectively get on their bikes in the cold weather in the rain, all the rest of it, to bring goods to your doors. And there are some pretty significant sort of rumblings around labour rights, around working conditions for those sorts of workers, which are likely to push the prices of this delivery, which is effectively subsidised by many of these big multinational organisations, the likes of Amazon, and might put cost pressure on it, making the cost of convenience perhaps a bit more prohibitive to a bit more of the marginal middle classes. It could end up seeing, in other words, a sort of more stratification between who gets to benefit from these services and who doesn't. At the same time, you're also, of course, seeing sort of more grassroots delivery models taking place, getting goods and services to the doors of people who previously didn't have any sort of logistics routes that got to their premises. So those are two sorts of things we can look at, two quite different trends, but could put some bumps in the sort of the total linear trend up for e-commerce.
We still have huge shopping malls, and if you go there on a weekend, they're often jam-packed. But they also have empty shops, I've noticed, so no one's renting the shops. Are we going to see the end of the shopping mall?
Well, it's like a lot of the trends that we're seeing. What you're really seeing with technology is that it's pushing everything towards the edges of the bell curves. It's making the middle a very dead place to play. So if you're looking at the sorts of retailers who are doing well, you talk about the big box retailers, the big discounters, there are queues. You know exactly what stores we're talking about there. At the same time, high-end retail is doing just fine. The luxury goods sector is doing amazingly. And many of them in the really luxury space are pulling offline and going more online, actually shutting down their e-commerce channels or reducing their sort of investment in them to focus more on the exclusivity of their product, because it's very hard to maintain exclusivity on a website. It's very hard to make your website look luxury. You're just dealing with the same sort of squares of pixels as everyone else. Whereas with the offline experience, you can control that more, you can control that exclusivity, and you can justify your enormous price points, right? But where you do see a huge fallout is in the middle sector. So your mom and pop shops, your middle income retailers, anything in the middle that isn't either big discount, mass market, or very fringe and luxury is under a lot of pressure. And that's the sort of sector that is under competition from the likes of Amazon and Takealot, of course, which has taken a lot of business away from brick and mortar stores too.
Has this led to cheaper prices? Are people getting better value for money than they were in the past? And I realize that can be hard to assess.
Yeah, well, that's a multifaceted question. It depends. First of all, yes, consumers have been subsidized especially by the multinationals. If you look at the Sheins and the Temus, if you look at the Amazons as well, even if you look at the likes of Uber and Uber Eats, these companies for quite a long time have run at a loss or at marginal profits. In other words, they've done that in order to scoop up market share, right? And that means people like you and I who are benefiting from the e-commerce delivery or from purchasing those products might actually be purchasing them at a price lower than what it actually costs to produce and to ship. But that's a kind of bait and switch game. What tends to happen with these sorts of multinational platforms, again, is they will undercut the competition to scoop up the market share. And once the competition is bankrupt, dead and buried, then of course they can jack the prices up a little bit more. So there's a short-term gain, perhaps a longer-term loss when it comes to sort of how consumers have benefited really from the digitization of the economy that has been effectively sort of subsidized by venture capital firms across the world. And that's of course been propped up by easy money that's come from governments, right? And how long those sort of windfalls get passed on to us is a different question. There's also the case of quality of goods that, of course, now that you have international distribution channels, quite often it might be done with more sort of questionable labor practices, for example, or greater economies of scale. Having local consumers able to get hold of internationally produced cheaper products is something that wasn't necessarily, available to us before. And that, of course, puts pressure onto local producers to produce at the same sort of economies of scale. And we know that our productivity here in South Africa isn't exactly up to par, which means that, yes, we could get some benefits as consumers from more productive parts of the economy, negating, of course, the actual environmental cost, which is also under question, which also kind of says that in the longer run, perhaps we're not going to be getting those sorts of cheap benefits going forward. So this might be a blip in the sort of history of consumerism where things get cheaper rather than more expensive, at least in the short term.
Is this also part of a bigger trend? So you've got Amazon, for example, but you've also got retailers like Temu where buying something online is like playing a game. I mean, is that model where you get a rush of serotonin and a rush of a discount going to take over retailing and possibly even beat Amazon?
Well, we already see this everywhere. This whole sort of betting on the gamification of all sorts of things is something marketers have been threatening / promising to do for quite a long time, and they're just getting better at it, right? They're getting better at playing on our emotions and on our chemicals and all the rest of it to get us to buy more. I don't see that other retailers are not going to copy what Temu's been doing there in terms of gamifying the shopping experience. I think we're definitely going to see more of that. Again, I think we're going to see a regulatory pushback on that because it does border quite closely into the realm of gambling, right? Which is where we're probably going to see some sort of pushback there too.
Thank you very much indeed. Really do appreciate the time. Bronwyn Williams is a trend translator at Flux Trends. You with SFM, 18 minutes to 9, continuing your mediated conversation this morning around the face of retail in South Africa. Zwelaka Mnguni is the Chief Investment Officer and co-founder at Bangula Global Fund Managers. Zwelaka, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Stephen. Good morning to your listeners.
How have we seen retail changing in South Africa? It's obviously changing. Is it changing more slowly here than it is in other places?
Certainly, it has been slow to change, but I think, as Bronwyn was saying, the COVID trends have actually accelerated the change in our market as well, in addition to globally. So we are seeing, food delivery or grocery delivery has taken a lead in that area, but we've also seen now clothing and other merchandise that are being sold by the likes of Take A Lot also being taking off in terms of demand. So our gross merchandise value in South Africa has been growing at around 10% per annum to about $6.6 billion. So we have seen quite a significant growth in that market.
Do you expect this, when we have online retail moving like this, so Amazon is a huge company, can the arrival of one player speed up change or have any big impact? Could a decision to pull out slow down change?
No, I think it would probably be a slow process for Amazon in the first place. I think there is a big challenge with an online business. So you need to get your logistics right, which is the bulk of the cost, to be quite honest. And then you have to get your suppliers aligned. You have to do stock management. I think all those three things would probably see Amazon taking probably 12 months to actually settle in. And they then need to have a plan in terms of what type of products do they want to push harder and which products. So that's now a sales plan. So it is going to be challenging for the likes of Take A Lot in the next 12 to 18 months. But I don't think immediately there's going to be a major challenge on that.
In our physical retail sector, so shopping malls, for example, the idea of seeing shopping malls that have shops but no tenants, so they're malls that have empty shops, why are we seeing that happening?
So I think partly because, some of the trade has gone online, but I also think that there was a time when the property sector was quite elevated in what they charged, and I think that we saw a reset to some extent in their rental vacancies. So I think that there is also a need for entrepreneurs to actually take up those spaces and see opportunity. But it is very hard in South Africa at the moment for an entrepreneur to raise capital. So that is one of the challenges. But certainly, I think the malls we may find that there's going to be repurposing in a few ways. Whether the products that have been sold, we might find that people come with new ideas in terms of what could be sold at the mall versus what's sold online.
There's been some commentary for some time that, in fact, we have too many malls. They simply built too many, and there was other reasons for this. Insurance companies needed to put their money somewhere, and this is what they did.
I would agree with that view. I think there's been so many malls, and in some areas quite concentrated and led to cannibalization. So it does lead to the vacancies because you take on one side and you bring to the other side. But the bottom line is that with time, the economy grows, the population grows. You do actually get to increase capacity utilization, but it will take some time unless we are actually quicker in repurposing. We are quicker in terms of establishing new entrepreneurs.
Excuse me. There must be different impacts in different sectors, right? So in a shopping mall and online, you can buy books or electronics equipment. But online, you can't get your nails done. Okay, if you want to get your nails done, you have to go to a shopping mall. So I imagine that you have different impacts in different sectors, and there's scope there for a clever mall designer or a clever someone to sort of make some kind of opportunity there. What I'm trying to get to is, yes, we talk about the death of retail, but it really depends on the sector.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, even the thinking of the death of brick and mortar retail, I think we are far away from that. I think what as you say, you could get maybe more services being moved onto the SaaS platforms. We've seen in some malls where actually the e-commerce players have created drop-off points or pick-up points within the mall. So the repurposing would probably come through more, but shifting more towards services rather than just the goods and the things like phones and all those things could be bought online as well.
I imagine that we could also start to see the rise of more of an experience economy. So, for example, shopping malls on a Friday and Saturday evening used to really attract business because people would come to watch movies in the cinema. And that would mean that the news agents, the CNA in those days, I suppose, around the corner from the cinema would stay open late too, or the bookstore, whatever. All of that's changed. You might have cinema complexes in shopping malls. The person who cracks the kind of experience in that to replace them with something else could do really, really well. What I'm trying to get to is, could shopping malls become more of a place where you go for an experience than a place where you go shopping?
Agreed, Stephen. I think you just reminded me about how big the movies, going to the movies was in years ago. And then we had all these movies in our own houses lately, and that changed it. But it didn't mean that there was death of the malls. Actually, there were lots more malls that were built after that advent. But the bottom line is that there is going to be a need to repurpose the malls, and probably the property owners might need to contend with lower rentals. They might have to just try and fill capacity rather than hoping to make a massive yield out of their properties.
Thank you very much indeed, Zulaka Mguni. I really appreciate the time. The Chief Investment Officer and co-founder at Bengula Global Fund Managers. Interesting to watch, of course, how all of this plays out. Well, in a moment, we'll hear from Kevin Tucker, the founder of PriceCheck, about what impact the introduction of Amazon is likely to have on our retail sector. Good morning, it's 11 minutes to 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Kick it off with an update. If you're driving to Pretoria, the N14, the Krugersdorp highway is being quite heavily backed up this morning. It has eased. That's the good news. It was being held up by an earlier crash on the M1 North after John Foster, but that's all cleared and traffic flowing. The N1's pretty heavy this morning from the old Joburg Road in Centurion all the way through to New Road. Very unusual backlogs for this time of morning. And a crash at Morningside on your way to Sandton. The collision on Rivonia Road before Greyston. So that's heavy coming from Rivonia side. And then behind that, South Road linking into Rivonia Road's all backed up as well. Collision on the Mike 1 around Carr Street, so very heavy from Gold Reef City or Monday Territory up through Crown. Behind that, the M2 is standing from Joe Slovo Drive to get into that M1 northbound traffic congestion. Durban, the M7, big queues earlier this morning going into Pinetown. Thankfully, we've seen the back of that. That's all normalised. There is a bit of pressure on the N3, just going off the N2 north onto the N3 for a turn in towards central Durban. And Cape Town, the N7, Jake Skirvell Drive is heavy. There's a crash right in the middle of Goodwood. Jake Skirvell Drive at Four Trekker Road, so that's all backed up. And just to the north, there's no traffic lights on Jake Skirvell Drive at Franz Conradi, also causing some additional delays. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
You talk about institutionalized hustle culture.
Bridget, it's a complicated conversation, right? Corporate in its nature is fast-paced. If you're working for a big cell phone giant, their job is to sell how many phones a day, right? So everybody must fall into that plan. So when they're saying to you, We are a high performance culture in this organization, and everything is fast paced, and we put in the work, we put in the extra time and whatnot. That's when it becomes institutionalized, right? So it's like you don't have an option here, to say, okay, me as part of the team, I will be the one who's relaxed, and then you guys will be the one who pushed. No, everybody pushes in that organization.
That was Spusi Nkosi. I never asked you, where do people find you?
People can go to my website, www.growthpeak.co.za.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Mediated conversation on SAFM.
9 minutes now to 9 the time. Important to continue your mediated conversation this morning as we look at the launch of Amazon in South Africa and the impact it could have on our retailing sector. Kevin Tucker is the founder at Price Check. Kevin, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Stephen. Thanks for having me.
When someone like Amazon comes in, they often come in with specials. I mean, is there evidence to show that Amazon's prices may be better than other online retailers in South Africa? Is it possible to assess that yet?
Short answer, yes and no. I love to shop as soon as there's a new player in the market, and I already bought myself an air fryer yesterday. And it was, on average, across all the retailers we compared, it was 50% cheaper than every other retailer for the equivalent air fryer. So their launch specials have definitely been significant. They've thought about it and they've entered the market quite aggressively. But that being said, we compared probably around 50 to 100 SKUs across other products, FMCG type products, and the prices were very similar. So across the normal range of products, not much discounting happening, but on their discounted products, their daily deals, as they call them, there were significant discounts.
And the thing about a daily deal is it makes you buy something that maybe you weren't going to buy, and now you are going to buy it because the price is cheap. It's a way to get people to the website.
Yes, and I think of all the international players, Amazon has probably been the most aggressive in their deals because they know that, because of the size of the range of their catalog, that if you come for a daily deal, you're highly likely to add a bunch of other things to your basket, as I did yesterday. And so, getting that foot in the door is a significant play for them, and it's been very successful.
You heard Zolaka Mguni earlier making the point it'll probably take them about a year to settle their supply chains, get everything working fully, get everything sort of up to speed. Do you think it'll take that long? I mean, people have been waiting for Amazon to come to South Africa for ages, so there would have been a lot of planning. But do you think it will take them some time?
I believe it will take them some time. I don't believe it's going to take that long. I think they are Amazon doesn't do anything kind of half-heartedly. And, even if this was a soft launch yesterday, there was no press around it. I think they were prepared. And anecdotally, overnight I received notifications to say that my products were shipped, they'd been dispatched, they were with the courier. So, within an afternoon, they'd already dispatched products without delay. And I think that's an indication of how professional they are around their selling operations, whether that be logistics or marketing or merchandising. And so it may take them a little bit of time to work out the kinks in rural areas or non-urban areas around South Africa, but I really don't think it's going to take them that long to get up to speed.
What are other retailers going to do? Are they going to see this? They'll have been waiting for this too. I presume the Takealots of the world will, find it in some ways difficult to compete, but be prepared as well?
Yes, I think, Takealot has established a very significant infrastructure around their retail operations. And I don't necessarily think they're going to be on the back foot in terms of logistics or in terms of, user experience. I think the big challenge for all of the retailers is making sure that they've got a differentiated product to offer. And, I worry that there's going to be a significant overlap in terms of the catalogs that retailers offer, especially when they have third-party marketplace sellers on their platform. Inevitably, those sellers will be, on 3 or 4 different retail platforms, on Amazon, on Takealot, on Macro. And inevitably, you're going to see the same products for sale. And so they're going to have to kind of come up with some differentiation to make people want to shop with them.
Are we going to see then a price war? I mean, that's what people would like to see, is some kind of actual price war. Is that not going to happen in that way?
That's a good question. I think the last time we saw a significant price war was when Takealot was taking on Kalahari. And, that's going on, over 10 years ago. And we haven't seen any investment in price since then. But we have seen a reliance on these deals, daily deals or, promotional deals around Black Friday. And I think even Amazon will be hesitant to enter a price war because I don't think it benefits anyone, other than the consumer. It doesn't benefit the retailers themselves. And so I think they will be very measured about how they go about, pricing things. And they may use limited time promotions to get people to build a perception around price rather than, discounting entire catalogs.
There were findings last year by the Competition Commission in the online retail space, and it can get quite technical, but it's about, whether Stephen wanting to sell something on Takealot and Amazon, whether he's allowed to do that, the price that people are able to charge at certain points. The fact that Amazon is now here, is that going to lead to just a bit more complexity in the market? In other words, there's going to be a lot more happening behind the scenes, lots more strategies being involved, lots of different ways of dealing with some of the people who are using these platforms to sell things. The whole business of online retail, let me put it a different way, the whole business of online retail is growing and will employ more people as a result.
You're spot on. We have another business that enables sellers to list on, various marketplace platforms, and it's extremely challenging. It's technically challenging. It's time consuming, and I think the platform that makes it easiest for sellers will see the greatest uptake, and then indirectly that will benefit consumers. They'll see better range. They'll see better pricing. They'll see better stock availability. And, the rumors are that Amazon is significantly more seller-friendly, if you like, than other platforms that exist. And it may see many sellers focus their energy on selling on that platform. And it will definitely increase, the infrastructure that's put in place by sellers. If they see a significant uptick in volumes, they'll hire people to, manage picking and packing and distribution. And merchandising, and I think that's great for everyone.
Is this change that everyone's talking about? I mean, are we going to see changes happen slowly or quickly? Or we could have a sort of flurry of activity for the next 6 months and settles down to some kind of equilibrium, I suppose, some kind of market equilibrium?
I think the change will come in user behavior. I don't necessarily think there's going to be a significant change in retail itself. Again, the catalogs will be very similar. The products being sold will be very similar. I think if Amazon, for example, provides a significantly better experience for consumers, we may just see a shift in consumer behavior rather than a change in the way retail works. I think the big changes we're seeing are, coming from the Asian retailers, as you mentioned, Temu and Shein. They're changing the way retail works with heavily discounted product and gamification, as you mentioned, and fast fashion, producing products within days rather than months. And I think that's probably where we're seeing significant change in retail. I'm not convinced that, Amazon has a magically new way of selling things online. And I think that's the big change that we're going to see.
Thank you very much indeed. Do appreciate it. Kevin Tucker is the founder at pricecheck.co.za. My thanks also to Zulaka Mguni, Bengula, a Global Fund Manager, Chief Investment Officer and Co-founder, and starting us off today, the Trend Translator at Flux Trends, Bronwyn Williams. I'm off for a couple of days, I'm afraid. I will see you again on Monday, but the team will be here with you tomorrow. Look after yourself from Mdu, Stanza, Melissa, Zoma, myself. You with SFM leading the conversation. It's 9 o'clock.
In our top stories, 3 political parties challenging exclusion from contesting the elections, and Israeli troops seize Rafah border crossing. Good morning. We start with election-related news. The Constitutional Court is today expected to hear 3 matters in which the Independent Electoral Commission is the respondent. In a last-ditch effort, the African Congress for Transformation, the Labour Party and the African Alliance of Social Democrats will seek the intervention of the Apex Court. They allege they could not comply with the March 8th deadline due to alleged faults with the IEC's online portal. Zuleka Kodashe reports.
Prescribes that a registered party intending to contest an election must nominate candidates and submit a list or lists of those candidates for that election to the Chief Electoral Officer in the prescribed manner by a date not later than the relevant date stated in the election timetable. This date was the 8th of March, which some political parties missed. After approaching the Electoral Court, the Specialist Court emphasized that the IEC must not be placed in a situation where it has to make ad hoc decisions about political parties and candidates who have not complied with Section 27. Parties will have the burden of illustrating to the court that their non-compliance was not due to their own conduct.
Brand reputation management strategist Solly Moeng says he sees nothing wrong with the DA's controversial election advert showing images of the country's flag burning. The DA received some backlash after it released the election advert. The DA leader, John Steenhuisen, has defended the advert, saying it's a reminder to voters who will vote for the coalition of the ANC, EFF and MK party in the upcoming election that is a doomsday coalition that would lead the country into an economic decline. Moheng elaborates.